based allegations that the municipality awarded tenders to people with close ties to him. Judge Jane Ngopeni says the matter cannot be heard due to another similar application pending in the High Court.
The court cannot today proceed with this urgent application that is before court, and the reason being that there are interlocutory applications which are pending for this very same matter. So the issue of the interlocutory applications must be dealt with first before the court can proceed to other applications. And as such, the matter is struck off the roll and the applicants are ordered to pay costs.
Action SA has launched the Tshwane Mayor's Performance Tracker to monitor service delivery in the city of Tshwane. The Performance Tracker is available on the party's website and tracks real-time performance across all wards, including turnaround times, unresolved issues and backlogs. Speaking at a media briefing in Pretoria, Action SA President Herman Mashaba says the initiative is aimed at strengthening accountability and transparency.
We are demonstrating how government should operate with transparency and accountability. True to Action SA's commitment to putting people first, we have introduced a new model of public accountability. In Parliament, our MPs report quarterly on their work directly to the public. Today, we uphold that same principle by providing residents of our city of Tshwane with clear, measurable indicators of progress they can freely and easily access themselves on our website.
The family of murdered Oba John Sefoka, popularly known as DJ Somebody, has dismissed reports that he was linked to underground drug syndicates. 4 men accused of Sefoka's murder appeared in the Alexandra Magistrates Court north of Johannesburg today. They are facing charges of murder, conspiracy to commit murder, as well as possession of unlicensed firearms and ammunition. Chad Thomas is the spokesperson for the Sefoka family.
We've identified over the weekend that the fight back is beginning. These syndicates are very connected. We've noticed that there's been speculative reports, there's been demeaning reports trying to indicate that DJ Somebody may have been connected to some or other underworld activity. And of course we dismiss that. We dismiss that categorically out of hand. DJ Somebody was a person that set up a foundation and was very invested in his community and developing his community, and a very family-orientated man. So we're going to see a lot of smear campaigns coming out, not just affecting this particular case, but all the cases related to what General Mkhwanazi has identified.
Police in Angola say 4 people have been killed and 500 have been arrested after demonstrations in the capital, Luanda. What began as a 3-day strike by taxi drivers against rising petrol prices has escalated into one of the most widespread and disruptive waves of protest the country has seen in recent years. Thousands of people joined demonstrations in the capital yesterday that saw roads blocked, shops looted, and clashes between demonstrators and police. Pockets of protests continued in Luanda today, along with further clashes with police and more looting of shops. Recapping the top story, Mineral and Petroleum Resources Minister Gwede Mantashe says South Africa should not be bullied into trading its critical minerals based on unfavorable terms and conditions. I'm on Dilambana for SFM News Headlines at 3:30.
In sports, the Sawa Kutza claims gold at World Aquatics Championships Arena and SOFA to foot the bill for Gabriel Salgado recovery. More details at 3:30.
Gender-based violence is destroying lives and tearing communities apart. It happens in homes, in schools, at workplaces, and too often in silence. But it doesn't have to continue. If you see it, speak out. If you are hurting, reach out. Because doing nothing is not an option. Listen to all 19 SABC radio stations from Wednesday the 23rd of July for hard talk, discussions, advice, dramas, educational shows and interviews around GBV with experts, survivors, lawmakers and a whole country affected by gender-based violence. All on your favorite SABC radio station. Call 0800 428 428 to report abuse or get help. GBV, it ends with you. This message is brought to you by the SABC. The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda on SAFM. You're listening to the National Pulse. Weekdays, 3 to 6 p.m.
Another day of big issues that moves the pulse of a nation. So what for you moves the national pulse today? My name's Ashraf Garda. As always, welcome to the show. Thank you for giving off your time. You could be young, you could be younger, you could be much older, you could be male, female, you could be living in some of the big metropolitan areas of our country, or you could be in some of the dorpies. Wherever you are, we reach you, and we're glad that you can reach us as well. Also, if you're listening via streaming live, as many do around the world, don't forget to download that SABC Plus app as well as one of your many options. And talking about streaming, I mean, you can physically watch us while you're listening if you follow us on the Twitter feed, as well as the same for Facebook. And you can also follow us on YouTube, on the SAFM YouTube channel. So lots to consider from all of that. Let's get straight to the issues then, right? And the first one regards issue of corporal punishment. So this is a story. The Department of Basic Education has revealed that some educators in KwaZulu-Natal continue to use corporal punishment in the classroom. Now, we know it's not allowed, right? So why do they do so? The practice was, of course, common under common law a long time ago, but it was actually abolished, listen to this one, since 1997. So it's a long, long time ago, which means that what I would think is a whole generation of young people are coming to schools and they don't know what corporate punishment is. However, as I say, they don't know. The reality is for some people, they know what it is because they get it. They're on the receiving end of all of that. Let's find out more about it with Elijah Mslanga, the national spokesperson for the Department of Basic Education. Appreciate your time, Elijah, as always. Thanks for connecting you on the National Pulse.
Ashraf, good afternoon. Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you. So this is a disturbing story. I understand in terms of a report we've just seen, it talks about effectively 1 in 5 learners in KZN specifically being on the receiving end of corporal punishment. How true is that?
Ashraf, unfortunately, it's true, but it's not just KZN. Eastern Cape also has incidents reported of corporal punishment. You go to the Free State, you go to any province, you'll find that it's there, which means our teachers are still misbehaving in this regard. So it's something that we are dealing with, and fortunately, the Bella Act, which was signed into law by the president in December, late last year, let me say, explicitly prohibits corporal punishment. So we've gone a step further, although it was already illegal, but we've gone further to now define the different incidents or the different things that would constitute corporal punishment.
So what then are the different things, just so that we understand it too?
Well, it's any form of physical punishment that includes hitting or smacking or forcing a learner to an uncomfortable position. We know that some of them will say, go stand in front and stand in one leg. Anything that will make them feel uncomfortable and not want to come to school, which may also make them feel belittled, or something that may humiliate them or ridicule them or threaten them. Anything that would really make them feel like they are not wanted. The law now says that cannot happen.
Now, you made the point that, yes, it may be more prevalent in KZN. It's not exclusively so in KZN. You give the example of the Eastern Cape too. I mean, would you say that it's a widespread practice then, nationwide, not just those two regions, but others too?
Yeah, I think the two regions are big when it comes to learner population. So for KZN, the more the people, the more the incidents, because they've got a large number of learners there. Eastern Cape as well, they've got lots of schools, about 5,000 schools, and a very big number in terms of their learner contribution to the national total. So that's what then becomes the statistic. But we also are aware that Eastern Cape has particular problems, because you will recall that yesterday the Eastern Cape Education Department suspended the principal for hitting a learner in school, and that learner is injured. If you look at the picture that was circulating yesterday, upon investigation, it was found that indeed the learner hit, the teacher hit the learner. But it also happened in my presence. I remember we're monitoring schools in one part of the Eastern Cape a year or two ago, and the teachers were not aware that we were in the school. And as we were busy in one classroom. We could hear hitting happening next door. We went to check. We found that the teacher was administering corporal punishment on the learners. So it's something that they still do. One of the things that the teachers say is that the parents asked for it because their child is naughty. Yes, that may be true, but the law is the supreme guide when it comes to what you need to do in terms of ensuring discipline in the school.
I mean, interesting. These results have come out from a study by the Department of Basic Education itself, right? So it's an internal research-based project that's done, right? What did it say in terms of the how? So one thing is you're saying they found out that some parents are encouraging corporal punishment. I can tell you now there are many people, even at my age, who say, well, you see, those days we got a puck and it somehow worked out anyway, right? But the point I want to ask you is that what about the teachers, those who are meting out this form of justice, let's call punishment, right? What are they saying when they've been approached about this? I mean, I take it you've got names, right?
Yes, we do. We do have names. We have their district schools. We know where they are because these incidents were reported by real people who are in our schools every day. So the data is reliable. So they are dealt with in terms of the disciplinary processes that are there existing. They are also reported to the South African Council for Educators because remember, when you become a teacher, you are given a certificate confirming that you can now teach and you sign a code of ethics. In that code of ethics, you confirm that you will uphold the highest professional standards. If you go against that, then you must be dealt with. But also there are incidents where criminal charges can be pressed. In fact, there are incidents where teachers have been jailed for severe injuries arising from corporal punishment. So it's assault. At the end of the day, it's assault. It doesn't matter how you want to look at it. It's assault that would have happened, and the police need to also be approached. So having had the BELA with this particular provision clarifying exactly what should not happen, it means that now we need to go out again to remind our teachers in our schools with all these engagements and visits that we are doing to remind them of their responsibility. Of course, working with the teacher unions to tell their membership that they need to adhere to this particular provision in law.
Let's go back to the point that I asked earlier about testimony. I mean, so have you got to a stage now, since you know the names, that they've been, well, if not charged, actually interviewed in terms of one-on-one to say, why have you done what you've done?
Some say that they felt there was no other way to maintain discipline in the classroom. In terms of classroom control, they felt they needed to do something else because when they talk to the learners, they don't listen. And in some instances, they say the learners don't do homework, and others, they absent themselves. When you ask them why, they don't explain. So there are many reasons that are given that the teachers are advancing, but also the fact that some of them say their parent came to the school and said that this child needs to be disciplined in this way. I, as a parent, I'm giving you the permission to do this. It may well be that agreement there at that local level, but it's against the law. So those are some of the things that they say as the reasons for them having to administer corporal punishment.
So I think the minister of basic education herself made the point that in fact, maybe charges need to be pressed against these people, right? So have they been pressed? Are they being pressed? What's the plan?
No, they are being pressed. Some are dismissed, some are punished in different ways, but where police have been involved, they are jailed. In fact, if you were to do a quick search, you'll find that the teacher was sent to jail, I think it was last year, for corporal punishment. So we think that, we thought that particular incident was going to be used as an example that you could actually be sent to jail. It's clear that it's not working in the way that we thought it would, which means we need to now do something else. So charges are pressed, and SACE is now also considering further sanctions that can be imposed upon those who contravene the law.
What about the other factor, which is that yes, that the teachers are helpless, that there are learners now who effectively play out their lives in a classroom as if they are adults and can be thuggish. And we've seen that, maybe it was just hearsay in the past, but a type of video surfaces every month in some school or the other. So we've seen examples of that where literally these learners run the show, like Blackboard Jungle, if I go back to the movie from many years ago. So what then is the recourse of that teacher?
That's a very good question. Then now it means the parents need to look at what their children are doing, because we don't teach that type of behavior in school. In the curriculum, we teach good behavior, respect for self, respect for others, relate well with your peers, report each other if you see something that is troubling you or something that may threaten life. Those are the values that we teach inside the classroom. So where do they get this ill behavior from? Which means they're bringing it from wherever they live, which means if the community were to take responsibility for what their children are doing, we would have better schools, we would have a better society. So we feel that as education, when a child is misbehaving, the teacher knows what to do. You write to the parent to invite them to the school. Yes, someone will say some don't have parents. Yes, whoever is responsible for them, parent, caregiver, someone who's responsible for them, must come and listen to what they have done. I also know personally, and in other reports and research that we've done, that there are some parents who also defend their children. When you tell them that your child was disrespectful to a teacher, she poured water over a teacher inside the classroom and the rest of the class was laughing and there was chaos, they defend. They say, what did the teacher do to provoke that type of behavior from my child? My child wouldn't do that under normal circumstances. That type of comment, that type of defending of the children can perpetuate that type of behavior, because they feel that they cannot be disciplined at home. What should happen in school is that you call the person who's responsible for that child so that you can have a conversation, and that child must be taught what to do. So that's why we say there has to be a strong partnership between the home and the school.
And I take it that strong partnership has to be, is not the same as there is, right? I would take it that the reality is there isn't. So, do we get a sense then that, it's something that we will talk about? I mean, you talk about it, I talk about it, but practically nothing can really be done. There's a complete breakdown in society, and it sounds terrible even saying so.
Absolutely, it's there, and unfortunately, as education, we don't have the capacity on our own to resolve social ills. We need to deal with these. Like now, at this time of the day, the children are back home with their parents in the places where they learned the first lesson in anything, whether to walk or talk or eat or say their name or write. All those lessons, any first lesson the child learns at home, and they grow with what they see, they grow with what they are taught day after day. So it cannot be that the school must take final responsibility for that. We are saying, let's work together. There are instances where parents go to school to check on the performance of their children, not just from an academic point of view, but from a behavior perspective, to say, how is this child doing? We need to normalize doing that, supporting the teachers, making sure that they are able to maintain order and harmony in a school and inside the classroom, which will amount to them performing well.
Well, I want to ask you, and I'll do this in a moment, about whether there is a way of maintaining that harmony, and we'll do that right after this.
Outsurance will do all they can to save you money on your car insurance premium. But what if they just can't? Well, they'll give you cash just for trying. That's right, just ask for 500 Rand cash. But wait, there's more. If you don't save and have been claim-free and with the same insurer for 3 years, you can ask for 1,500 Rand cash. Savings or cash, you always get something out.
Go to outsurance.co.za now for a 10-minute quote that could save you thousands.
What does you always get something out mean to you, Lorette?
Outsurance made it possible for us to live our dream, to travel more with the money in our pocket that we save.
Let me know, what is it?
725. It was unbelievable. My husband, he sits there on the chair and he's just nodding his head and say, yes, yes, yes. This is really not just an advertisement. This is really real.
Go to outsurance.co.za now for a 10-minute quote that could save you thousands. Licensed insurer and FSP. T's, C's, and information online.
This Mandela Month, SAFM celebrates the spirit of Ubuntu, calling on all South Africans to engage, uplift, and do good for one another. Let's share what we have, lend a helping hand, and honor Madiba's legacy through kindness and action. Join SAFM as we bring you powerful conversations, inspiring stories, and voices that drive change all month long. SAFM, leading the conversations that move us.
Right, this message is brought to you by Ituba. Get ready, Mzansi. Powerball has rolled over to a massive 100 million rand guaranteed jackpot this Tuesday. So that's tonight, right? You heard it. Play Powerball for the guaranteed 100 million rand jackpot today. You could hit it lucky. Buy your tickets now in store on the nationallottery.coza, the mobile app, cell phone banking, or simply dial *120 *7529 hash for USSD Panda Push-Up Play. Players must be 18 years or older. Play responsibly. Ituba is the proud operator of the National Lottery.
Ashraf Garda on SAFM.
So let's conclude the conversation with Elijah Mtlanga. And by the way, you listening in, you can certainly add to that. We'll take your calls imminently. So call in live right away, 086 000 2032, or send a text message or WhatsApp to 0614 104 107. Or you can tweet using the hashtag The National Pulse and tag SFM Radio 2, right? So Elijah, here's two things, right? What then is the plan and the modus operandi when you have learners who are unwilling to play by the rules of the classroom, and the teacher cannot issue a form of corporal punishment but still has to maintain control? So what are the guidelines then for the teacher?
Well, one of the things that can happen is that learner can be taken to the principal's office for a talk, and while that talk is happening, learning will continue. And the next day, they will be given a session in terms of what they would have missed, so that they are not left behind. Because when we deal with discipline matters, we must also be careful not to compromise the curriculum content coverage, and that they must not be left behind. So that's what we do. But again, the involvement of the parents is critical, because at the end of that day, when school closes, they are going back somewhere. Same issue with that of dropping out. We always say, if you don't want to come to school and you're dropping out and you stay with your parents, what do they say to you? So someone has to take final responsibility for the things that you're doing, because even the teachers that you meet at school, at the end of the day, they also go home, which means both of you find yourself in the same streets, you go to the same church, you go to the same shops, you meet in social settings where you also do other things that are common.
Yeah.
So we have to establish a way of creating a society where the young people respect the older persons, but the older persons, are they leading by example? Are we exhibiting good behavior? I don't think so, because when we see the protests that happen by adults, there's a lot of looting, there's a lot of behavior that is not exemplary in terms of the bins that are turned over, the trashing that happens, and the young people are watching those things. So when they do those things, we must not act surprised because we taught those things. So I'm saying, as adults, we need to take responsibility for the things that we do, because the young ones are watching.
So that's the one thing. Here's the last thing then, right? Again, we've seen too many examples of videos of these learners effectively trying to run a classroom, taking control, in fact, beating up teachers as well. So in the absence of a teacher effecting a form of self-defense, what recourse does that teacher then have? Because the teacher then is humiliated and maybe even physically, well, not maybe, often physically assaulted as well, in front of all the entire classroom. The self-esteem, the leadership issue fails. What can the teacher do in a case like that? He or she can't say, I'm going to report you to the headmaster. That comes later. This is in the moment.
Well, it starts somewhere. By the time we see the video showing the escalation of the violence, it didn't start like that. It started somewhere, and it graduates as time moves on, and it erupts into the violence that we eventually see. So you also have an option of containing it, de-escalating it as it is happening. You could call another teacher, or you walk out of the classroom and go to the school principal. All of these things require emotional intelligence. They require calmness, because you need to think of the consequences. You may act in self-defense, and that may be your argument that it was in self-defense, but at the end of the day, if you're found guilty, you are going to lose your job. And I don't think we want you to lose your job as a good teacher because of something like that happened at the spur of the moment.
All I can say
so we are saying, exercise caution, count down, and find a different way.
Well, all I can say is who wants to be a teacher, certainly at high school level. Rhetorical, I know. Elijah Mtlanga, thanks for your time. National spokesperson for the Department of Basic Education. Right, let's get some quick calls on this issue. Sia in Durban. Go for it, Sia. Hi. Sia, do I have you there?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now. Go for it, Sia.
Yes, thank you. Ashraf, I think this issue of school discipline, it's something that I think a mistake was made when we received, as it were, freedom. We became too liberal, even when it comes to issues of moral. I tell you, our generation when we grew up, whether today we look at it as a wrong thing or whatever, we've become so progressive that the issue of discipline, it's something that the law, in a way, the government despises. Hence, the results of the kind of a generation that we are raising now that is lawless, that does not know respect. This thing, you can't legislate it. It's a moral thing, it's a heart thing. And so, for example, when we grew up, we used to pray in our schools. We have assembly, and there'll be teachings on moral, on behavior, on respect. When you throw God outside a nation, you lose moral. Whether we want to accept it or we don't want to accept it, that's the reality.
Okay, got that.
So that's what I wanted to say.
Thank you for that. And some have argued about that. Don't throw God out of the classroom. It's become too secular. The question is, do you have to then have a certain type of religious expression, let's call it Christian in a majority Christian country, or in fact, you can be godly without being specific with that faith, but talking about the good things that human beings need to do. Let's get your thoughts on that, on corporal punishment too.
Very much, and good afternoon to the viewers.
Thank you.
Look, man, I'm in my teaching right now. I just came from my extra class. I requested learners that we should remain so that we have an extra class. Now, there is one learner who just forcefully walked out of the classroom and banged my door. Now, what do I do when this learner does this? Like I just said, I must have exercise emotional intelligence. Because now, if I leave this learner to do this, it means that other learners can walk out of the classroom tomorrow and bang the door the same way that he did. And tomorrow I can assure you that I can call his mother, her mother rather, and then the mother will just not do anything. So to call parents again when learners exhibited this indiscipline, I'm going to be honest with you, it does not assist.
Yeah.
And Elijah would know that. Because all we'll have is just parents listening and saying that there's nothing we can do. And we'll also have those who sometimes defend their children. So for me, again, tomorrow to call the parents and leave class to come and attend to this issue would just be a waste of time. And then tomorrow I'm going to be required to make a recovery plan. And also assist the very same learner who was disrespecting me. And how do I do that?
Well, I think your point is valid. Absolutely right about that. It is so incredibly difficult. And also the point is, if a teacher calls for the headmaster or all the time, the principal, or the parents all the time, then it comes across that the teacher actually has no control over the classroom, and the learners then will sense that this person can't make decisions. So there's no firmness. All right. Can we leave it at that? We need to get to the other issues right now. Much appreciate your time. We'll pick up that conversation as soon as we can. Here's the news headlines now with Ondela.
Thank you, Ashraf. On the news headlines, Johannesburg Mayor Dada Morero says the city is ready to host the upcoming G20 summit that is scheduled to take place in South Africa in November. Mineral and Petroleum Resources Minister Gwede Mantashe says South Africa should not be bullied into trading its critical minerals based on unfavorable terms and conditions. And a 25-year-old suspected drug trafficker has been arrested at OR Tambo International Airport. The suspect was arrested on arrival from Sao Paulo, Brazil via Doha and was found with cocaine bullets worth over 4.2 million rand. A full update follows at the top of the hour.
SAFM has signed a code of conduct that is enforced by the Broadcasting Complaints Commission of South Africa. Under the code, we are committed to giving news that is accurate, comment that is fair, and programming that is not harmful, does not amount to hate speech, or contain violence or explicit sex. If you think we are not living up to that code, then you can inform the Broadcasting Complaints Commission of South Africa. Direct any complaints in writing to the Broadcasting Complaints Commission of South Africa. PO Box 142365, Craig Hall 2024. Fax to 011-326-3198 or an email to bccsa@nabsa.co.za. For more information, please visit www.bccsa.co.za. This is SAFM Sports with Tuming Khapele.
Right, I don't know when last we ever led with a swimming story. It's outside the Olympic Games, but go for it.
It's been a while, right? A very good afternoon to you, Ashraf, and our listeners. Well, Peter Kutzer claimed gold in the men's 100-meter breaststroke to bag South Africa's first medal at the World Aquatics Championships Arena. Kutzer clocked 51.85 seconds, winning his first world senior title. He also cut 0.14 seconds off his own African record of 51.99 seconds, which he had set when he won gold at the World Student Games in Germany earlier this month. Meanwhile, 19-year-old Chris Smith booked his place in the men's 100-meter breaststroke final, and he's going to return to the pool tomorrow at around 2:03 South African time for the medal contest. In football, SAFA Chief Medical Officer Dr. Thulani Ngwenya has confirmed that the association will carry the costs of getting Gabrielle Salgado back on her feet literally. This is following a horrific injury in their WAFCON semi-final defeat to Nigeria. Salgado stayed down on the floor in deep anguish while her teammates were inconsolable last week Tuesday after a tackle from behind broke her leg in the 83rd minute. And Ngwenya says that they will involve her club, JVW. However, SAFA will take the driving seat throughout the whole recovery and rehabilitation process.
SAFA will be managing, and because she belongs to JVW and she'll be back in the country, we will also rope them in and will not really hand over to JVW, but we'll manage together, because in women's football we still try to cover quite significant management when it comes to players that got injured at national team duty.
Meanwhile, Cape Town City Chairman John Comitas says that he will wait for the final ruling over the Marumo Gallants case before celebrating. The dispute centers on midfielder Monde Mpambaniso, whose registration was allegedly botched during Gallants' transition from the Motsepe Foundation Championship to the Premiership. Now, SAFA's arbitration panel sided with City, ordering the PSL disciplinary committee to investigate. If Gallants are found guilty, they could face point deductions for every match that Mpambaniso played, potentially leading to relegation or being fined. And Gallants, who finished 10th last season, say that they received no official communication and are waiting for clarification. In cricket, New Zealand captain Tom Latham has been ruled out of the first test against Zimbabwe. This is starting at Queen's Sports Club tomorrow. New Zealand white ball captain Mitch Statner will lead the team in Latham's absence. And according to a statement by New Zealand Cricket, Latham injured a shoulder while fielding in a T20 match in England earlier this month and has not fully recovered. And he will remain with the squad in hope of being fit for the second test, which starts on the 7th of August. In athletics, sprinter Gabriela Marais believes that the FISU World University Games provided valuable lessons for her athletics career. The 21-year-old was among Team South Africa's medalists in Germany after winning bronze in the women's 100-meter. And she says that she is growing in the sport and has recently picked up on the bag of being a hockey player. And before I leave, Ashraf, yesterday you were asking when did Cape Town City lodge their complaint. It was actually in August 2024. However,
so the beginning of the new season, effectively. Last year they did basically flag it, and the person that was, or the prosecutor, opted to see it as just a minor
mistake, nothing big. But because of the disciplinary systems in South Africa, Cape Town City had to wait this long to follow up on it, and now PSL is investigating.
Okay, so Cape Town City were not just sitting on it. I mean,
No,
it's a bizarre story.
crazy.
Yeah, well, new season starting, so it starts again. There we are, got that. Let's see what happens. So what's it? Cape Town City versus the PSL, or Cape Town City versus Maluma Gallants? One of them. Yeah, it's all confusing. 3 in 1. Thank you.
Keeping your family healthy this winter can feel like a daunting task. Try the Lung Shield range. It includes capsules to support healthy lungs and immunity, a syrup for kids that supports the immune system and promotes lung health, and an effervescent with 13 essential ingredients to optimize immune function. Put your family's health first this winter with the Lung Shield range. Available without a prescription at leading pharmacies. Lung Shield, prescribed by doctors, recommended by pharmacists.
What is Overtrail? Is it off the beaten path, over the edge of comfort, or the thrill of the road less taken? It's over every bridge, every obstacle, every trail, and over to that view that takes your breath away. Overtrail means going further, exploring deeper, surrounded by the comfort and sophistication of a luxury SUV. It's this spirit that inspired the Overtrail project. Experience Overtrail in the LX and GX range. Lexus. Experience amazing.
With the ever-changing financial landscape, it can be difficult to make sense of all the moves at times. Join me, Jimmy Moyaha, on the SAFM Market Update with MoneyWeb, Mondays to Thursdays, 6 to 7 p.m, as we break down the key market trends, top financial stories, and smart investment insights, all in one place. It's everything you need to stay financially informed and ahead of the curve.
Right, there's lots to consider regarding some of the big shows here within the SABC platform. So get ready to embark on a thrilling journey that includes crime, redemption, and the pursuit of justice as Soon Comes Night. That's it, Soon Comes Night. Premieres on SABC 1. It happens this Sunday at 8 p.m. It's a tale about liberation hero turned heist king, Alex Shabana, in a 5-part drama. Now, there's a starring role for many. Let me just read some of the names. Kwenzo Ngobo, Kenneth Nkosi, Albert Pretorius, Didintle Kuno, and then Khawesi Raditolo, Aliliswa Pewa, as well as Bahume Mtlongo. One man in search of justice, the other on a path to redemption.
Ashraf Garda on SAFM.
Right, let's get into another issue that should really concern you and me and everybody, right? The United Nations has expressed serious concern about rising hunger on the African continent. According to the UN, worrying projections indicate, and listen to this, by the end of the decade, 60% of the world's malnourished population will be in Africa. You got that. So from the complete global population of people who are malnourished, 60% will emerge from one continent only. What's even more disturbing is that currently there are 280 million people across the African continent that are already malnourished. I mean, those are the numbers, right? Now, the flip side of that is Africa possesses a wealth of mineral resources. So in many ways, it's like the richest continent in the world. So how complex is that, and how do we get down to addressing the issues? With me is Sandy Bukula, who's the acting CEO of Operation Hunger. Sandy, appreciate you giving up your time here on the National Pulse.
Hi there, it is so great to be here.
Thank you. Let me start with that first, in terms of understanding why do we have the problem in the first place? How is it possible that a continent as mineral rich as the African continent is also the poorest, and therefore, as a result of that, you're having the most malnourished people in the world on that continent?
Ashraf, the resulting malnutrition that we are seeing and the resulting numbers in chronic hunger is deriving from a complex of multiple drivers. Drivers such as, for example, the dysfunctionality of our food system as a continent and as also as a region in the Southern Africa. And secondly, it is resulting from conflict, the rising food prices, as well as the inparticipation or the slowness in growth within the economy and the inclusivity of the entire population basically being able to participate and have safety nets.
So, therefore, I mean, in terms of this report, I mean, I would take it the report doesn't surprise you, does it? I mean, understanding you're dealing with hunger, but it's like, okay, it just affirms what we already know, right? The more important one, then, in the issue to fight hunger and inequality and all these other, call them social ills that go with it, how do we turn that around?
I'm going to start with the opportunity lies within turning around basically our food systems as a whole. Ishraf, only 15% of Africa's trade happens within the continent. So we've got a very fragmented food supply chains that only enables a small percentage of those people being able to participate in the formal of the food system supply chains. And that is basically looking from your production all the way to your consumption. The second limitation that we have is that we've been very much concentrated on exports of raw materials in terms of the agri-processing structure, which is basically, Africa is a breadbasket of the world. However, we exporting a lot of raw materials, and we haven't really done enough in terms of formalizing our infrastructure to enabling industrialization so that we can be able to process what we grow within the country, so that obviously permeating jobs, permeating innovation, and also permeating just basically the trade within the agri space. And I'll just look at that alone. Over the past 3 years, we've had a reduction in terms of the annual harvest across the country. And that is both on the formal as well as the informal trade within the agricultural space. And that tells you, for example, that the potential of harvest that could have basically been either developed into byproducts and being sold within the intercontinental space has actually been lost. So we've got immediate opportunities that we can actually be looking at. I think also the second thing that we should be looking at, which is also an opportunity, is that we have had such a dependency in terms of developmental aid, but during this period, let's just looking at the last decade, we haven't really have seen real results in terms of, like the financing and the debt that we are accumulating from the international aid that we've been able to report back and show a tangible results. So meaning that even when we're looking at what we have borrowed, including with our domestic funding, we haven't really done much in terms of growing the economy in real time to ensure that people are absorbed and that they are productive and their livelihoods are actually protected. Because if you think about the underlying factors and the driving factors of malnutrition, it would be your socioeconomic status. It is the ability to be able to afford a healthy diet, to have access to a healthy diet, to be in a situation where you are able to trade for a healthy diet, and none of those things, like the large majority of the population has had. And what we're seeing is a huge competition also in terms of the conflict area zones, where we are currently fighting for small lands, but not actually growing in terms of capitalizing and industrializing and maximizing that.
So I mean, the issue of economic growth, I think, is a given, and everybody would say the same thing. But not every country, for whatever reason, not every country is blessed with that. Now, I understand that maybe from an Operation Hunger point of view, maybe the focus would be South Africa. But are there other countries that maybe faced with huge issues of malnutrition have been able to turn it around, like case studies that you could share? One with high economic growth, but others with low economic growth, but perhaps did something different that I don't even know about that actually worked.
Absolutely. So I'm going to just take two countries that we've been very much aligned with as a continent, and other countries like Asia as well as South America. And if you're looking at our growth and the trends over the past decade, we were almost in the same level. However, they've been able to reduce the number of, malnutrition by at least about 10%, so all the indicators that are driving malnutrition. And they did a very simple thing, is they've looked inside and industrialized their agricultural lands, and they looked at what are other areas where they can actually grow the local economies in order for the people to be able to participate right immediately. Now, the second thing that these countries have also done is they've diversified the type of funding that is available to small farmers and to just basically, small market enterprises as well, in order to ensure that the absorption level is actually increasing. Because if you are to basically solve the malnutrition problem or the hunger problem, you have to address the underlying factors. Otherwise, because I think what is different with what we've done in the country, as a country, not as Operation Hunger, but I think what has been different is that we have concentrated for over 30 years looking at relief, mitigation and interventions. And we haven't actually, we've had 30 years. We should be at this point have looked at other areas that are not operating in silos in terms of sectors that can be able to absorb, and deal with the malnutrition and diet-related issues 100%, because the country at the moment spends about 80% of its health budget on non-communicable diet-related diseases, but on treatment, Ashraf, instead of actually looking at nutrition interventions that are supposed to be for prevention.
Yeah, that's an important point too.
Yes, so those are the kind of things that we are looking at. But now, if I take you to Operation Hunger and what we've done, I think basically what makes our model so attractive to investment, and basically also just to international investment, is that we have actually diversified. So we not only deal with the relief elements, but we also deal with the developmental angle. So we invest in the infrastructural assets that are required to provide strategic coping systems in those specific communities. And what we do is that we basically then educate and provide a community enterprise development programs that enable for the people to produce their own food, to be able to trade for their own food, and also to turn over some of the waste and into byproducts that can be sellable. And we are working obviously in penetrating into much more bigger markets, which I think has really helped. And we've been the first people to pioneer basically the and lobby the diversification of domestic funding to enable, local economies to actually be able to participate, because obviously the funding structures at the moment are quite stringent.
It's a good point. Let me end with this, and it's maybe hypothetical, right? Is there a sense that as the world is more industrialized, there's a sense we're more modern, and therefore things are easier to get?
Yes.
That in fact what has happened is agriculturally, and I don't mean just South Africa, that in fact there's more poor people, whereas reality is that agriculturally we should be able to be food self-sufficient, no matter where you are, no matter what the industries of what the economy of the country does. That means people should be able to, as you said, be able to fend for themselves and actually getting food on the plate. Do you see that contradiction?
That's 100%. That we should be at a level at the moment where we have actually been able to develop in terms of infrastructure and permeate those systems to be available to people everywhere.
Yeah. Okay.
We shouldn't be behind. I mean, we've had, this is not a new phenomena. We've had, an issue with the influctuating numbers of malnutrition and hunger for the past 30 years in South Africa, in a democracy, for example. And we've only been able to meet 2 out of the 10 targets, of regressing the malnutrition standards. And that is absolutely not acceptable.
Well, let's leave it on that word of inequality and the ills that is multiplied because of inequality and poverty, and then, of course, the issues of malnutrition. Much appreciate your time, Sandy Bukula, the acting CEO of Operation Hunger, and that is a concern coming from the latest UN report. 60% of the world's malnourished population by the end of this decade will come from the African continent only. Now, let's talk about the World Day Against Trafficking after this.
If you're active on social media and love SAFM, we hope you'll take a moment to like or follow our SAFM page on Facebook and Twitter. These are the best places to find all the guest information, conversations, and stories you love from your favorite presenters, along with regular updates from SABC News. And don't forget, you can send your questions to feedback@safm.co.za. SAFM, leading the conversation.
Okay, this message is brought to you by Ituba. Get ready, Mzansi. Powerball is rolled over to a massive 100 million rand guaranteed jackpot this Tuesday. You heard right. Play Powerball for the guaranteed 100 million rand jackpot today and you could hit it lucky. Buy your tickets now in store on the nationallottery.coza, the mobile app, the cell phone banking, or simply dial star 120 star 7529 hash for USSD Panda Push-Up Play. Players must be 18 years or older. Play responsibly. Ituba is the proud operator of the National Lottery.
Ashraf Garda on SAFM.
Well, from one issue of huge concern about malnourished people and people and human beings, victims of famine already on the African continent, to another issue that should concern you. Tomorrow marks World Day Against Trafficking in Persons, and this year's event will be observed globally, and the theme is Human Trafficking is Organized Crime and the Exploitation. You've got that? Human trafficking is organized crime and the exploitation. So, tomorrow, the Department of Justice and Constitutional Development will launch the local task team to support anti-trafficking efforts at ports of entry across, our country. Let's find out more about it and what the plans are with Andri Snell, who's the Deputy Minister for Justice and Constitutional Development. Deputy Minister, appreciate your time. In fact, we'll get to the guest in just a second or so. Let's see if we can take some calls in the meantime. By the way, you know that conversation already we've had with Sandy Bakula. You can pick up that conversation as a podcast now. Fusani will probably have it up in a matter of minutes. And the earlier conversation around corporal punishment, we can have that up as well. In fact, you can check it up now and share that as well amongst your friends and family to say, have a listen to that. Well, here's some thoughts from you.
Yo, good afternoon, Mr. Ashraf. That is how democracy has actually destroyed South Africa with not actually punishing the students. The very same government does not know what to do. All the punishment they are giving are actually useless, Mr. Ashraf. How can you say walk around the school 7 times? Do you think that is punishment? They have no clue what to do now, the democratic government. It's very sad destroying South Africa's future with their liberal, which are not working in South Africa for us and for everyone else. Pastor Cape Town.
Well, listen, there's a sense some of the things, as you're right, walking around 7 times, it's not really going to work. It doesn't work. I think teachers are wrong if they're meting out corporal punishment, but there's also this thought of thuggish behavior in schools where learners literally run the show. How do you expect a teacher to cope?
Hi, Ashraf. The answer is very obvious. It's always been there. Teachers should not be responsible for discipline at all. The principal and the deputy principal are responsible for discipline. If the teacher has a problem with the child, they take it to the principal. It's out of the teacher's hands. The principals are supposed to be the people that sort out the society that we say is crumbling. Bad leadership again.
Okay, good. I don't know if it's simply a case of bad leadership. This is not unique to South Africa, really. It's a global breakdown of discipline in families and plays out than in classrooms too, isn't it? Otherwise, you would not need to have any police service anywhere in the world. Think about it.
Ashraf, can you please ask Elijah what will happen to a child who is continuously doing the same thing over and over again? That thuggish behavior. Even if the parent is called, he continues with these deeds. What should the punishment, or what should be done to that kid? Should that kid be expelled, or what should happen?
Well, that's the point, isn't it? So I think one has to be concerned about both sides. The teacher who's wrong by meting out corporal punishment, which is against the law, and the effects that it has on the learner. And the other one is the learners who take control, who do not listen, in fact. So what does the teacher do? Call the principal all the time, call the parents all the time. And then the flip side of that is where the learners run the show. And what do you expect? Seriously, how the teacher must respond. I don't know, I'm not a teacher, but can you just imagine if somebody listening, of course there has to be a teacher. Give me your experience. You can call yourself by whatever name you like if you don't want to give your real name. We need to hear what the teacher has to say. What's your story? And what about the parents? What's your experience?
Ashraf and the SFM listener. Ashraf, you know what? This drink and drive is just applying for those civilians only. We drinking with the police at the tavern, but you will never tomorrow when they say 38 people has been arrested for drink and drive. You won't find even the police there. I don't know how it works. Maybe you can explain better.
Okay. Well, I tell you what, I can't explain that better now, but let's maybe just reflect on what you just said, and maybe somebody else may also call in and comment too. The issue of hunger is such an issue.
Good afternoon, Ashraf. Unbelievable hypocrisy from the United Nations and the so-called West. How is hunger going to end when the so-called West keeps imposing its puppet regimes upon the people of Africa and oppressing them? Democracy for themselves and not for others. And the so-called West is also going to say, don't come to our countries, fix your own countries. This is unbelievable hypocrisy. Thanks, Lionel Woodbank.
Well, I hear that, and some of you may concur it's not the whole entire UN, although you may say who's got the veto powers within the United Nations. And yes, there's been many examples of let's call it influence in other countries that has changed the entire workings of that of those nations, right? So let's talk about schooling. Daphne in La Lucia. Hi, Daphne.
Hi. Good afternoon. It's mandated that every child goes to school, not so?
Yeah, okay.
It is mandated. So if a child doesn't turn up at school on any day, shouldn't the teacher tell the principal, and the principal must immediately phone the parent, and then it can set the things in motion before something nasty befalls the child?
I would think that may well be happening already, but the problem is that sometimes the numbers are so huge, it's not easy to phone 30 people every day they don't pitch up at school, because some of the reasons could be, the person's ill, so you have to wait a couple of days, can't you? Or you should.
So they are forced to phone, the principal is forced to phone the parents immediately, so that if something befalls the child, they can at least get onto it before it becomes,
Well, I hear you. Let's get more thoughts on that. Thanks for that call, Daphne. Are they forced to phone immediately? And simply because the person's not available, not at school at that point in time. Thanks for that, Daphne. Let's get further thoughts on farmers.
Hi, Ashraf. A lot of farmers are having to deal with, land users and landowners are having to deal with mining applications on agricultural land. And there doesn't seem to be a policy that puts agriculture first, especially if you've got productive agricultural land. And that's an issue that needs to be addressed. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, that's an issue that we've raised about the power of agriculture.
Democracy has cost us almost a generation. If you have not had an absolute democracy, maybe partially, where teachers will have rights to punish kids. Nowadays in high schools, like you're going on a war zone. And the second issue is there's a rumors that the police being funded by Israel and CIA to destabilize South Africa about this land, the Lesotho land claim.
Okay, let's pause on that because many others want to talk about learners in schools as well and that relationship between teacher and learner. Think about that. There's more to come. Right now, it's the news at 4 o'clock.
Thank you, Ashraf. On the top stories, City of Joburg ready to host the G20 summit, and experts say famine is underway in Gaza. For SAFM News, I'm Ondela Mbana, and a very good afternoon. Johannesburg Mayor Dada Morero says the city is ready to host the upcoming G20 summit that is scheduled to take place in South Africa in November. The summit comes at a time where the city of Johannesburg has been battling infrastructural challenges that have had a negative impact on service delivery. Morero says despite the challenges faced by the metro, the city is more than ready to host any top international events.
We are confident. We have already hosted almost 4 meetings. The foreign ministers was in Nazareth. There were a bit of challenges that we have corrected. There was ministers of health in Melrose. There were ministers of finance, and I think the last one was the ministers of local government who were somewhere in Sandton. So I've already hosted about 4 G20 meetings, and of course the summit is the last one, which will be hosted in November.
Mineral and Petroleum Resources Minister Gwede Mandashe says South Africa should not be bullied into trading its critical minerals based on unfavorable terms and conditions. He says South Africa should not be apologetic for being a BRICS partner because it destabilizes the balance of forces in global leadership. He was delivering a keynote address at the G20 Critical Mineral Engagement in Sandton, north of Johannesburg. Mandashe stressed that if being a BRICS member attracts tariffs from the US, then South Africa should diversify its markets.
The most important thing for us as developing economies is that we should not be bullied for what we own. We must have a view, and our view must be respected, that we mine these critical minerals. People need them. They must talk to us. We must not give them critical minerals in their own terms, and our views are ignored. I'm talking about the industry. You get 30% tariff imposed on you. Please send those critical minerals somewhere else where there are no tariffs, where you get optimal value.
A 25-year-old suspected drug trafficker has been arrested at OR Tambo International Airport. The suspect was arrested on arrival from Sao Paulo, Brazil, via Doha and was found with cocaine bullets worth over 4.2 million rand. Police spokesperson Amanda van Veek says the suspect was also examined to check if any drug-filled pellets were swallowed.
A search of the trafficker's luggage led police to uncover about 10 kilograms of cocaine with an estimated value of 4.2 million rand. SAPS continues to record commendable successes in dismantling transnational drug syndicates operating between South Africa and other countries. Through targeted intelligence-led operations, more than 25 drug traffickers were arrested since the beginning of the year at this port of entry.
Transcripts of telephone calls alleged underworld figures have taken a center stage in a trial within a trial in the Western Cape High Court. An investigator who cannot be identified is testifying remotely about 39 phone calls allegedly between Mark Liffman and Jerome Boysen and Andre Nodia Boysen and his co-accused are on trial in connection with the murder of international drug smuggler Brian Weinstein in 2017. State prosecutor Nathan Adrianse wants these intercepted phone calls to be allowed into evidence into the Weinstein murder case, while the defense believes they are not relevant for this case.
I circulated a copy of CDA, CJA, as well as the initial 50 call list with the summaries to all of the remaining counsel last night, Judge. So everybody is now in possession of the annotated version of the call list, the index, as well as the transcripts with the notes of the captain.
A UN-backed monitor, the Integrated Food Security Phase Classification, says a famine that is described as the worst-case scenario is now unfolding in Gaza. The UN's World Food Programme says the situation is reminiscent of famine seen in Ethiopia and Biafra in Nigeria in the last century. The BBC's Yolanda Nell has the details.
The new alert predicts widespread death in Gaza without immediate action to stop malnutrition and starvation. It comes from the IPC, which is made up of more than 20 UN agencies and aid groups. While this warning falls short of a formal famine declaration, which the IPC says is for governments or international agencies to make, it adds pressure on Israel. Already in recent days, Israeli leaders have announced new measures, including daily pauses in fighting in parts of Gaza. But the UN and Palestinians say that on the ground, little has changed. Desperate crowds continue to loot incoming aid lorries.
Recapping the top story, Johannesburg Mayor Dada Morero says the city is ready to host the upcoming G20 summit that is scheduled to take place in South Africa in November. I am Ondelambana for SAFM News Headlines at 4:30.
In sports this hour, Bok women look to level matters in final test against New Zealand. Osaka gets interim coach and Mackenzie urges South Africans to buy live golf tickets early. More details at 4:30.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, the M1 southbound in central Johannesburg, slow moving towards Crown Interchange, and the N3 northbound in Bedfordview, queuing on the link to the N12 east at Gilulis Interchange. In KZN, the N3 westbound in Pietermaritzburg is where a truck lost its load and a stationary truck reported before Market Road exit, and Umgeni Road westbound, slow moving through Springfield Park. In Cape Town, the N2 Nelson Mandela Boulevard outbound queuing towards Hospital Bend and Strand Road eastbound in Stuckland, slow moving towards the R300 highway. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
Gender-based violence is destroying lives and tearing communities apart. It happens in homes, in schools, at workplaces, and too often in silence. But it doesn't have to continue. If you see it, speak out. If you are hurting, reach out. Because doing nothing is not an option. Listen to all 19 SABC radio stations from Wednesday, the 23rd of July for hard talk, discussions, advice, dramas, educational shows and interviews around GBV with experts, survivors, lawmakers and a whole country affected by gender-based violence. All on your favorite SABC radio station. Call 0800 428 428 to report abuse or get help. GBV, it ends with you. This message is brought to you by the SABC. The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda on SAFM. You're listening to the National Pulse, weekdays 3 to 6 p.m.
All right, the second hour of the National Pulse. What for you moves the National Pulse today? What are the biggest issues? Is it the issue that we've just touched on, the issue of corporal punishment, and the fact that even now, it's an amazing story. One is the issues of the rights and wrongs, but the fact that it is illegal at this point in time, it is, and has been since 1997, and at this point in time, 1 out of 5 learners in KZN on the receiving end of corporal punishment, and similar numbers in the Eastern Cape, and there could be others as well. And I think the spokesperson that I chatted to from the Department of Basic Education confirms that it does happen, although it's not allowed. Okay, so there could be other factors in terms of what is the causes. Why would teachers get to that length of doing that? What about the teacher-learner parent relationship, teacher-learner-parent, headmaster, principal relationship, all of that. But the bottom line is, if the teachers are doing that, what do we do with them? Now, in fact, what was said from Elijah Mhlangu is that, in fact, many of them actually get fired and they have to appear in court and they do get jailed for that. I mean, what are the numbers? So I'd love to know if you have any personal thoughts on that. I would love to know, particularly if you're a teacher and the pressures that you face being a teacher, because I'm also suggesting, whereas that's wrong, I'm also suggesting that it cannot be seen in isolation. There's a bigger issue at play here in terms of the culture, the way we do things, that we have to consider. Well, talking about culture, what about the culture of minerals and where we get the minerals? Do we export them or do we import them? So here's an interesting story. The Mineral and Petroleum Resources Minister, Gwede Mantashe, addressed delegates today at the G20 Critical Mineral Stakeholder Meeting in Sandton, right? Now, Mantashe lamented the importation, this is key, the importation of raw materials. So he's not happy that we are importing raw materials. He says this further exacerbates poverty and inequality in the country. To help us understand what else was said, we have with us Katlego Legodi, who's the SABC News economics reporter. Katlego, appreciate your time on the National Pulse.
Good afternoon to you, Ashraf, and to our listeners at home.
Thank you. So first things first, I mean, did what the minister say, did that surprise anybody?
So Minister Gwede Mantashe was basically moving right along in terms of the country's G20 meetings, and this is where we see his sector putting under the spotlight these issues of the critical minerals. So most of those that were there in Sandton gathered today from various of the countries as well. We're just looking at the role of critical minerals and how these minerals can help emerging economies in terms of being competitive on the global stage.
Okay. How, I mean, did he, not just him, I mean, did it come across about the conundrum of, like, it's easier said than done about don't import, and then what? Maybe a greater case could be made for what is South Africa doing to ensure that we increase our exports and we not just export, but in terms of the issue of beneficiation, that we do that on a greater scale in our country before we export as finished products.
Yeah, most definitely. Those were the concerns mostly that came from those that were on the ground, and the minister's admission as well that indeed, when you look at it, we are rich with minerals on the continent of Africa, but when you look at our economies, they are at the back end. So something that does tell you that there's no balance here in terms of trade, and most of the people that were here in terms of the consensus was around ensuring that we curb the exporting of raw materials, but we beneficiate here at home, and then we start exporting into various of the markets. The benefits should stay here at home, because I think as we speak right now, that is a totally different picture in terms of some of the countries that we've been exporting these materials to, that especially in the mineral sector, that have not seen us actually benefiting as emerging economies. So today we see them talking about the issue around a framework that South Africa is working on as part of its G20 presidency. And this framework will be looking at ensuring that indeed there are issues of beneficiation that are put on the spotlight. There are issues of skills development in line with these critical minerals. But at the same time, we see him just talking about ensuring that these critical minerals do then play a role in the just energy transition, and we should be intentional about that. One looking at the benefits of having these minerals here at home. So there are admissions here that came about in ensuring that going forward there should be a little bit of a different approach, especially using South Africa's G20 presidency to our own advantage.
So did you get a sense in terms of how South Africa's G20 presidency will be used, because it's a presidency of the G20, it's not South Africa's presidency, right? But how then do we use the G20 presidency for our own advantage? Does that come across?
This particular framework becomes one of the most critical issues. I think in the past we had not had an intentional sit down that speaks to the issue of critical minerals. So we see South Africa actually starting something new here. And the reason why this becomes the case is because there were admissions even from ambassadors that were there at the meeting earlier on today that these critical minerals are now a buzzword globally. And you see South Africa better positioned, the countries on the global south better positioned in terms of leading the discourse where these critical minerals are concerned. So you hear most of them just talking about minerals like your lithium, minerals like your cobalt, the rare earth minerals and others that become fundamental here to industries such as pushing for the renewable energy, the issue of electric vehicles, digital technologies, the making of components of some of these digital gadgets. So this particular minerals become very important, which is why South Africa has started something here. And this is where it is also, banded together with countries on the continent to say that we need to strategically approach the critical minerals in a way that going forward it will be different. So this particular strategic framework that they're talking about is a framework that would see inputs even from today. Those inputs will be taken to the summit in November, the main summit, and this is where then South Africa will be looking at ensuring that going forward the issue of critical minerals become on the agenda because we are now leading that discourse. It's a framework that is started by South Africa. It will be led by South Africa, looking at the emerging economies that will rally behind this framework as well.
Now, I mean, lastly, did it come through? Because I know the Gwede Mantashe made a point at the height of this whole U.S.-South Africa debacle that's been going on. And I'm paraphrasing, making the point like, effectively, if you're going to slap us with all these different tariffs, like we don't need you, like we don't, effectively suggested we don't need you. Did that come across, and was there a counter to that?
It did come across, and this is something that I asked him as well when I did a crossing into one of our TV shows here at home, and just talking about the issue that we find ourselves with all of these geopolitical issues playing themselves out. How do we then reimagine the critical minerals, for instance, working for the emerging economies? Us here at home, how are we going to approach this one in a way that we can use these particular minerals to bargain with other economies, so that we're able to trade better. And his response was clear that the most important thing for developing economies, including us right now, is that we should not be bullied for what we own, and these are in his own words, that we should not be bullied for what we own. We must have a view, and our view must be respected, that these mineral criticals, there are people that need them, and we are at an advantage as South Africa. And this is where we should then, in any way start banding behind this, even going to an extent of saying that he's talking to industries now, that if you get a 30% tariff imposition on you, he's saying that you now need to ensure that you look elsewhere to countries and nations that won't actually treat you in that manner, where there are no tariffs, where you get optimum value of these critical minerals. So most of them are worried about our relations with the United States of America. We know that the 1st of August is just around the corner, and there's still issues around whether the 30% would kick in, and how do we see then South Africa moving in this particular manner. And for instance, they are really clear that the critical minerals become our bullet here in terms of fighting some of these issues that are playing themselves out geopolitically.
Just the last point then, when he said we shall not be bullied, was that explained? I mean, what does not be bullied mean? And why I asked that question is because, the reality of the way the world's economies work is that stronger economies will always hold more clout than the others. I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I'm saying that's the reality. In the same way that a supermarket in South Africa is able to get better rentals, lower rentals to pay for their large space than an independent store. It is the nature of doing things. So how then do we turn around the we will not be bullied and still be able to do business with some of the key economic partners in the world?
He basically is saying that it should not be a free-for-all. We should not be a pushover where some of these issues are concerned. Even going to a point here, Ashraf, of saying that we must have a view, and our view must be respected. We must have a stance as Africa, as South Africa, and our stance must be respected. It must not be that we are just exporters of these raw minerals, but we should see them working for us. So he's basically saying, and even taking and giving us an example of some of the resolutions around critical minerals from the recent G7 meeting, saying that he has taken issue with the wording around some of these issues because it does look like some of these global powerhouses would want to force their way into having these minerals one way or the other. But he's saying that should not be the approach that South Africa accepts here. That as a country, we must stand our own. We must be able to negotiate and negotiate for our people. And he's saying that then it should not be the similar picture that we have now, because as we speak right now, most of these minerals are not even benefiting the communities where these mines are at, where investments are sought. But he's saying that going differently and going about it differently would help our economy in this regard, which is why he's saying we must have a view, and our view must be respected.
Our view must be respected. We will not be bullied. Katlego Legodi, the SABC News economics reporter, thank you for that input, and I'm expecting you, the audience, driven by that conversation, to have a lot to say about it. So let's hear it. When we say we will not be bullied, how do you internalize that practically for South Africa 2025 and beyond? Let's talk about water challenges. Goodness, maybe that's a light word, water challenges. It's a lot more than that. We'll chat to Fidel Adam about that right after this.
You are listening to SAFM Radio, this Mandela Month.
It is in your hands now.
Ashraf Garda on SAFM.
Okay, let's get on to the water issues. I'll tell you what, interesting, like 10 years ago, we hardly ever spoke about water. Yes, load shedding was like ruling the roost. It still is to a large degree, the issues of, power supply and the lack thereof. But when someone suggested our water problems may be even worse than we can ever imagine, the light or power problems would be, it's like, oh, come on, man. Can't really be, isn't it? But that appears to be the case. So we'll chat to Dr. Fidel Adam about it. She's the executive manager for WaterCan, and we'll do that as soon as we can, right? In the meantime, there's comments from you, and the schools issue certainly has struck a nerve.
Hey, Ashraf, Krugersdorp High in Krugersdorp. calls every day. If your child misses the first period, you're going to receive a call that says, please provide reasons why your child is not in class. You will receive an email the whole day if you have not provided those reasons to say, why is your child not at school? I don't know how they do it. Do they have someone who makes calls or what? Thanks, Sibongi here.
Thanks for that, Sibongi. Maybe that works. I mean, honestly, in today's world, besides emails, a simple WhatsApp from the key person at the school to the parent, and there's like one or two numbers that you've given them. I mean, that would suffice. And yes, you probably don't have to wait. So you're not saying why is your child absent? It's like provide reasons, right?
Good afternoon, Azarov. I'm from Paul, early retired teacher, exactly because of the ill discipline in the classrooms. There's no justification. It is chaotic nowadays. And I don't see myself inside a classroom anymore. I'd rather go online. I'm never going to teach again. Thank you very much for the great show.
Thank you for that. Yeah, well, that's another move towards sort of online learning. Talking about Paarl, I'm being very nostalgic. My mother-in-law, my late mother-in-law, comes from Paarl, so they're a very well-known Lati family in the Paarl region. I'm just being very nostalgic about it right now as you mention it. Okay, let's get on to other issues. The issue of water. So the city of Joburg and their water issues is a recurring story. We had no water for, I think, for about 4 or 5 days about 2 weeks back. But then you have others, like it's even longer. This time around, there are issues in Sandton and Bryanston. It's like passing cards. Your turn, my turn, and we just go all around. And the issues appear to be very, very similar. Somebody who certainly has an inside knowledge on it, if not a handle on it, is the Water Can Executive Manager, Dr. Ferial Adam. Ferial, as always, good to connect with you on the National Pulse.
Thanks, Ashraf, and thanks for having me on your show, and hi to all your listeners.
Thank you. Right. So, I mean, every time we speak about a different suburbs in the greater Johannesburg region.
Right.
What are the issues now? Where are they? What are we talking about?
So I think the key issues that we're seeing right now is the Sandton area, where there was an outage and a long outage. The interesting thing is that, it seems like, as you said it's like we're passing the buck, we're passing the conch, so to speak, where each area gets their turn to have no water for about 2 weeks or so. And this is going to be a recurring issue in Johannesburg until we actually fix our infrastructure.
So it sounds simple, is it as simple as that? Fix the infrastructure. Perhaps maybe tell us, when you say fix the infrastructure, what is wrong about our infrastructure?
Yeah. So I guess you're right. It's not like we're going to fix it today and tomorrow everything's going to be fine. We're in a mess, right? We are dealing with aging pipes and pumps, and reservoirs are leaking. Almost half of our reservoirs are leaking. So it's quite a massive problem. But when I say we fix it, is that we need to start now before it gets even worse. And that's the challenge, is that it needs the commitment now, it needs the funding now, so that we can start the process. It's taken at least 18 months since Joburg Water announced that half of our reservoirs are leaking to actually start getting the contracts out to start on 5 reservoirs. There are 42 that are leaking. So that's when I'm saying that we've got to start fixing it now. And it takes each reservoir will take about a year, maybe 18 months to fix.
Sure. I mean, if I was in the borehole digging and establishment business, I mean, that's the business I would get into, don't you think?
I mean, that's the challenge, is that there is a growing, how do I say this, a wild west of borehole drilling. Mm-hmm. And some of it, there's a Borehole Water Association, and all of their members do things, accordingly. They know where to drill, they know how to drill, because it's a skill. And a lot of companies are popping up, and that's why we had the issue with the Gautrain a couple of months ago. We had the issue with someone trying to drop a borehole in the city center, which you can't do. So there are those that we need to keep track of, right? But also we're saying, as environmental and water activists, that it's we need to understand Has anyone done a really good assessment recently of the amount of, borehole water we have? What is the state? Is anyone tracking how much of it is being extracted? I know of someone, I don't know the person personally, but who's bottling it and selling it. That's not allowed. It's illegal to do that.
Yeah, let's go back. It really, this is what's going to happen in a completely disrupted, supply and demand economy. So people do things that you would never dream about, and they will just do it anyway because there's a demand for it. Not saying it's right. That's what happens. So let's get back then to the cause of the problem. You spoke about 95 reservoirs and 5 being treated. So, it is. I've probably asked you this 5 times already before. Is it a crisis?
Yes. Yes, it's a crisis. And I'll tell you also why it's a crisis and why we're quite concerned at the moment, Ashraf, is that so the way the funding works at the moment is that all that we're paying goes to the city of Joburg, right, for water and sanitation. City of Joburg allocates an amount of water to Joburg Water, which is far less than what they actually need to get things done. So they allocate 1.2 for capital expenditure, 1.2 billion, but they need about 2.5 to 3 billion to actually do things well and do it in the time that they need to. So what is happening is City of Joburg will put money monthly into Joburg Water's account. But they have this thing called a sweeping arrangement that the City of Joburg can then take that money at their own whim and to show that they actually cash flush. And previously, they would return that money back to Joburg Water within 24 hours. Now it's taking much longer. So what is happening is that the contractors are not being paid by Joburg Water, so they're downing tools. So things are not getting done as quick as they can get done because City of Joburg is playing games with the money.
Well, because they need the money, so they take it back. What about the ownership? So who owns Rand Water, for example, or Joburg Water? There's Joburg Water, Rand Water, City of Joburg. What's the difference between the three?
Okay, so Rand Water is a water board, and Rand Water falls under the national government, so National Department of Water and Sanitation. Their boss is the Minister of Water, right? Joburg Water is a utility, and it is an arm of the City of Joburg. So City of Joburg is basically the overseer of Joburg Water.
All right. Okay. That explains why they can put money into that account and then or into that
yes.
utility and then withdraw it when they need the money. Yeah. How, just the last thing, and I probably said this before, at the time of COVID-19, the threat on the lives of people was so severe that it was deemed a national crisis, and actions were taken aligned to that, good or bad. They were done in that line. If this is a national crisis, or certainly a big crisis anyway, do you get a sense that national government and then regional are doing something about it on a national scale, meaning that it is given the urgency that is needed?
I don't feel it. I think that the national government has the National Department of Water and Sanitation has significantly changed, since 2019, I would say, and they are doing good work. So they have put into place, changing policy, changing regulations so that they can have more of a control. So what the new regs does is that if a municipality is failing, as they are failing now, it's hard for the national government to jump in and say, listen, we're taking over. But with the new regulations, they can. They can take away the water use license from municipalities and then allocate it to someone else to work on the water. So they are trying to do that. They have tried to lay criminal charges on various municipalities. The problem with the courts and criminal charges is, it takes a very long time to actually get through the legal process. And in the meantime, those people are still in their jobs and still doing the nonsense that they're doing. So I do think that, but it's not enough. And I think when we think about our water resources, we must remember that from our rivers being healthy, we need that to survive. To water for drinking, I think every part of this water cycle has been affected by our political wrangling, by corruption, by a whole range of issues, including the rise of that we see now of water tanker mafias or water mafias as a whole, which I think is affecting this. And that, you're right. All of that comes about because you don't have a system where you have proper enforcement.
Okay, let's
So
leave
I
it at
think
that.
that is something. Yeah.
Leave it at that. Ominously so, Dr. Fidel Adam, the executive manager of Water Can. And, we talked to her because at this point in time, it's a case of water can't, isn't it? Let's get the news headlines. Here's Ondela.
Thank you, Ashraf. On the news headlines, 6 Northwest municipalities have had their equitable share allocations withheld by the National Treasury. Johannesburg Mayor Dada Morero says the city is ready to host the upcoming G20 summit that is scheduled to take place in South Africa in November. And Ukrainian officials say Russian forces have bombed a prison in the southern Zaporizhia region, killing at least 16 people and wounding many others. A full update follows at the top of the hour.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic. This is SAFM Sports with Doming Khapele.
Okay, Tumi, let's talk sport. Let's talk Cape Town City.
Yes, we start things off with football this hour, where Cape Town City have sold utility player Procius Petrus to Sudanese champions Al Hilal on a 4-year deal. Petrus joins Al Hilal just weeks after they secured the league title in the war-torn country in a 1-month mini tournament on their return to playing in Sudan for the first time in more than 2 years. Elsewhere, Newcastle manager Eddie Howe says that the club has not received a bid for their top scorer, Alexander Isak. The Sweden striker is exploring his options for a potential move and has not travelled on the team's pre-season tour of Asia, although Newcastle initially said that he has a minor thigh injury. According to reports, Liverpool are interested in the 25-year-old. This is despite signing Hugo Ekitike for an initial £69 million, around 1.6 million rand. Then in rugby, Springbok Women's Centre, Kumisa Kawe says that securing a win in their final test against New Zealand will definitely boost the team's confidence as they continue their final 2025 Rugby World Cup preparations. South Africa lost 34-26 after a hard-fought battle against the Black Ferns at Athlone Stadium on Saturday. And Kawa says that they will look to approach the upcoming match with intent to make sure that they level matters in that final test. Then in golf, Sports Minister Gayton McKenzie has come to the defense of the prize for the Live Golf Tournament ticket prizes, which will take place at the State City from the 20th to the 22nd of March. The tickets cost 600 Rand, and McKenzie says that the public must purchase their tickets early to avoid missing out on this historic event.
It's very affordable, and I can tell you it was a big part of our discussions with LIV, and they have truly been very accommodative for that price for South Africans. If you can compare to other countries, and also the fact that they added the fact that children under 12 is free. So it's a family affair, as you can see here. There's families coming. So I want to say to South Africans, the tickets are on sale. We know South Africans, we always like to buy last minute. Let's not make that mistake this time. Let's go and get our tickets. It's $30 around, and it is for the whole family. And just on one point there, it is going to showcase our local artists. It's going to showcase our local dancers. Fashion is also very high here at LIV. So fashion is also part of what South Africans love. So the price for me, I can tell you, thank you, Scott, for coming down and being accommodative with the price.
Meanwhile, in tennis, Japan's Naomi Osaka will work with Polish coach Tomasz Wiktorowski on a trial basis. Osaka announced the parting with Patrick Mouratoglou yesterday, and she began working in Canada with Wiktorowski, helping her reach the Wimbledon final and world number 2 ranking in July 2012. He also coached Poland's Iga Swiatek from late 2021 until last October. Before I go, Ashraf, would you buy a ticket for 600 Rand for the Live Golf Tournament?
I'm thinking about it.
For the whole family, by the way.
So 600 for the whole family?
Yeah.
How many people in a family?
I don't know.
He's got to specify. I mean, I'm not being funny.
Yeah.
4 people
actually, fair
makes
enough.
up a family? Is it 8 people? We will all be related if that's the case. Look, okay, let's say typically family of 4, actually it's a hell of a good price.
It is.
It really, I mean, again, not everybody goes to attend everything, but if you're going to attend a global golf event, really, 600 Rands is as good as you'll get. I mean, it's more expensive to watch a movie at the cinema.
Honestly.
I know that. Yeah.
Honestly, that is true.
So, yeah.
I'll have more on other sports in the next hour.
Hear the rhythm, feel the heat at the Imbaula Music Festival in partnership with SAFM, where music, culture, and community come alive. Join us on the 2nd of August 2025 at Pretoria Botanical Gardens from 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. to vibe to Sanal musician Calvin Momo, Amanda Black, Zing Lumalo, Trompis, and many more. More than just music. Share stories, spark change, and unite against gender-based violence. Grab your tickets at imbaula.co.za. Brought to you by SAFM and SABC1. Hear the rhythm, feel the heat. Imbaula.
This business feature is sponsored by CFI, an authorized financial services provider, a global leader in online trading now available in South Africa. Visit cfi.trade today.
Economic news on SAFM. Facts and figures you can count on.
Let's get to numbers as always with Makwe Masilela, Chief Investment Officer at the Makwe Fund Managers. Right, we've got news locally and globally, but you've got some interim results for Kumba Iron Ore, Makwe. Makwe, do I have you there? Let's see if we can connect with Makwe. There may just some gremlins coming to the system here. And I don't mean Kumba Iron Ore gremlins, but let's see if we can do that. All right. What I can do in the meantime is we connect with the... Right, Makwe, do I have you there? You're live on the National Pulse on SAFM, yeah?
Yes, Ashraf, how are you?
Good to indeed. Right, I've already introed you. Let's talk about interims from Kumba Iron Ore first.
Yeah, higher sales volumes and the ability to earn additional premium from their high-quality iron ore contributed to their improved overall financial performance, and the average realized free-on-port export prices were 8% above benchmark, but remain under pressure, and revenues down 4%, and profit and earnings per share remain flat. Sales benefited from improved logistics, and those sales volumes are up 3%, and as of the European Union and USA trade deal took off some of the pressure of the 1st of August tariff deadline. Hence, we are now focusing on company earnings reports, U.S. interest rate decision, the Bank of Japan, and our local rate decisions on Thursday, plus the mother of all reports on Friday, that is the U.S. job numbers. But today, we are waiting for the outcome of the U.S.-China trade talks, and locally, our credit growth in private sector held steady in June, going up by 5% year-on-year, with business credit rebounding, but consumer borrowing is still lagging, and with the U.S. effective tariff rate sitting at 17.3%, and that is from 24.4%. The IMF raised the global economic growth forecast, that is from 2.8% to 3%, and the US dollar got rejuvenated as unfolding US trade deals are not attracting much retaliation or causing major economic damage so far. Even firmer commodity prices couldn't help the rand itself, and oil prices rising further on trade or relief, and as Trump ramped up pressure when it comes to Russia over its war in Ukraine, Brent crude is up 0.8% at $70 a barrel. Yellow metal attempting a recovery from near 3 weeks low as easing global trade tensions limited demand. That's ahead of tomorrow's U.S. interest rate decision. Gold is up 0.1% at 3,318. Global stocks seems to be liking the fact that economic recession fears are fading, with the JSE up 0.3%, led by our industrials, and the rand weakened 0.4% against the US dollar 17.93, 23.91 against the pound, and 20.69 against the euro.
Okay, great for that, Makwe. Thanks for that. We'll connect with Makwe tomorrow. Let me remind you, the markets update comes up from, 6 to 7. 1 hour of that with Jimmy Moya. Do not miss that.
Thank you for tuning in to today's business feature, proudly sponsored by CFI, a leading trading app now available in South Africa. Download it now. Visit cfi.trade today.
Hi, I'm Lewis Hamilton. Victory demands everything, but the journey is never solo. My team carves the way, data and innovation are my compass. This is how today's champions are made.
Trade like a champion with CFI. Access over 15,000 instruments, advanced trading tools, 24/7 support, and superior trading services. Visit cfi.trade today. CFI Financial Markets LLC is a Category 1 licensed broker by the UAE Securities and Commodities Authority. Trading involves high risk.
CFI, empower yourself.
Ashraf Garda on SAFM.
I tell you what, there's been an issue. So last week we had this conversation about a person from South Africa taking a grenade, like this sort of training grenade, to Ethiopia, and somehow that person was able to skip customs or navigate that bizarre story. Indeed, that's one thing. There are many other issues. As we talk to you, there's still this ongoing strike that impacts on flying SAFER, so that's another thing to do with aviation. And now a third one. According to the South African Petroleum Association, we are now, most local fuel refineries have now shut down. So the question is, there's a sense that we have a fuel crisis that will impact all the major airports, and therefore will, important to you, will impact your flying time. Guy Leach is with us, the aviation analyst and editor of Fly South Africa, Fly SA Flyer magazine. In fact, Guy, good to connect with you on the National Pulse.
Yeah, hi, good afternoon, and nice to be with you.
Thank you. So let's start with that. Do we have a fuel crisis?
Well, not yet, we don't, but yes, there are increasing supply constraints, and as that article you mentioned pointed out, we've lost 5 refineries over the past 20 or so years, so we're down to just Natref and Astana in the Cape. So, yeah, we're increasingly reliant on imported processed fuels, and in this regard, Jet A, which is the jet aviation fuel in particular.
So how do we, so maybe there's two parts of it. So what will be the impact now? So the article talks about running out of fuel in 2 months in South Africa. So how realistic is that?
You know, unfortunately, I don't know, because the article just refers to a 2-month maintenance period for the Natref refinery. But now, is it the full 2 months? If it is, then there will be a problem. But it shouldn't be that big a problem, because with a bit of forethought and planning, they can bring in the fuel. The real problem is the airports, in particular our Tambos, lack of investment in infrastructure. In other words, tank farms. They need a huge tank farm to be able to give them the buffer for problems with supplies. A few years ago, 2 years or 3 years ago, we saw that problem with the damage to the railway lines around Durban. That caused a massive shortage of delivery of fuels. They had to bring in fuel through Maputo because the tank farms had a maximum of 21 days worth of supply. And again, that's the situation now. So if the maintenance takes longer than 21 days, well then, in theory, there could be a problem, but we would like to think that they could lay on additional supplies at this stage being delivered by a tanker from overseas.
Now, see, some of the comments from Natref talks about, regulatory issues around maintenance that impacts even worse, and maybe therefore some form of lateral thinking needs to come into play. Any thoughts on that from your side?
Well, yeah, the point is that the fuel supply regulations were last written in 1965, and they are hopelessly outdated because they were written to protect the local refinery industry. That is no longer the case. As I said, the local refinery industry is all but gone. So,
so on that point on the local refinery, just a quick thought. Yeah. So is that like gone, as in irreversible gone, or like temporary, or what?
Well, market forces have been allowed to dictate, and it's quite simply it's been cheaper to import processed oils, whether it be paraffin or jet A or petrol or whatever the diesel, whatever the case may be, rather than refining them here from crude oil. And so that is why progressively the refineries have been closed down. Also, they were reaching the end of their useful lives, and they would need massive injections of capital, which were just, quite frankly, not available given the economic climate, for the necessary upgrades to the refineries.
Okay, I mean, I understand that, right? So what, in your opinion, then needs to happen now? Because, I mean, yes, you're importing. Yes, there are issues. Yes, you can't have a situation of running out of fuel in 2 months' time. I mean, absolutely, it's a catastrophe, really. That would be the case on multiple levels. What, in your opinion, as someone who understands the aviation industry, needs to happen now then?
Well, it's simple, really. I mean, Axis has been boasting about its 15 billion rand capex program, and yet I haven't seen much in the way of news on improvement in the tank farms, in the ability to store fuel, because that's what they need. They just need to build a bigger buffer for events like this, either planned maintenance or unscheduled disruptions in supply. So they should be probably plan to have at least 30 days worth of fuel available if they're going to, and it's essential that the airlines manage to continue their schedules. Otherwise, the disruption factor is absolutely enormous.
Yeah, huge. Let's leave it at that. Guy Leach, the aviation analyst, editor of the SA Flyer magazine. And the basis of our conversation is the fact that there's a thought that because of fuel issues, with most local refineries now shut down and airports being hamstrung by legislation that really makes it more difficult for them to get alternative sources, we could well be out of fuel in 2 months. Do you believe that, or believe it or not? We'll probably take your calls on this on the National Pulse right after this.
Kathy Motlatlana on SAFM.
Often the existence of helplines is publicized, whether people are listening to radio, but often we don't know what the work of these helplines is until we have to engage with them.
In terms of our helpline, for instance, we receive on average between 4,000 to almost 6,000 calls per annum. Predominantly women who are calling from across the provinces, who are calling to ask for assistance. In terms of the assistance people are calling for, sometimes it's just to get information. I'm being abused, or I think I'm in an abusive relationship. What should I do? Others are calling to say, I want to escape. I'm looking for a place of safety. Where can I go?
Diane Masawe, who is a member of the board for the National Shelter Movement of South Africa.
If you're ready to talk, I'm here to listen, and nothing is off the agenda.
Ashraf Garda on SAFM.
Right, I need to hear what you have to say. Earlier on we chatted about the chance that we'll chat to the Deputy Minister of Justice around human trafficking, right? So that didn't happen, but it will happen around 5:20. So do listen out for that conversation. There'll also be, further developments regarding the first conversation we had around KZN pupils, 1 in 5 being, beaten by teachers, corporal punishment, that is, victims of that, despite it being obviously banned since 1997. So we'll get another take on that just now, or just after the news, in fact. But right now, I need to talk to you. You're on the pulse. I need to feel you. Let's get to that first up. Let's get to some of the callers first. We got Sipho Seto in Joburg. Go for it. Hello.
How are you, sir?
Yeah, good for you to call in. I don't think we've spoken before.
Yes, I'm speaking to the Possession Committee. I'm calling from Johannesburg.
Thank you. Go ahead. Yeah.
And friends. What I'd like to say, I grew up at school with the corporal punishment. Today I'm a man. I do respect. Corporal punishment is very important when it comes to black people, children.
Yeah, so just explain.
My child.
Yeah.
When he punished by a teacher at school, he punished him or her because he did something wrong or she did something wrong. When he arrived at home, I'm gonna punish him or her about what he did at school. That's just all.
Okay, you're going to punish your child when they come back from school and they did something wrong. So you take the responsibility. But what is the nature of your punishment to them?
I'm going to punish my child when he arrives at school and a class teacher or or principal informed me that your child did something wrong or what and
Yeah, I'm saying how do you punish them? What is your punishment?
My punishment.
Yeah.
My punishment, I'm gonna take a belt and punish him or her.
You're going to take a belt.
My child is not for a government, it's my child.
All right. Okay, I hear you. I can tell you now, there's bound to be a reaction on that. Take your belt. Is that a form of corporal punishment? Thanks for that, Sipho Setu in Joburg. Moscow in Newcastle, hello.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, how's it, man? Go for it.
Yeah, no, I'm okay. No, Asra. I think the government is missing something, because if we understand very well, the owner and the creator of a child is God. If we look and listen what God says from the book of Proverbs 23, verse 13 and 14, do not withhold discipline from a child. If you punish him with the rod, he will not die. 14, punish him with the rod and save his soul from death. That is God, the maker and the creator of a child. If we miss what God says, who knows his child, who's young human, what will happen? Because the government is out of what God is saying. I thank you so much, Asha.
Okay, perfect. Thank you for that, Moscow. Right, there's more, and there's a whole... In fact, there's one thing that's moved the national pulse today. It has got to be that issue of corporal punishment. 1 in 5 learners in KZN in particular still being meted out with corporal punishment. In fact, although it was outlawed in 1997. Incognito, go for it. What's your point?
Good afternoon, Ashraf, and all the South African listeners.
Good to talk to you, yeah.
True. I've got like 2 solutions.
Hey, you're very important. If you got solutions, we need to all hear you. Yeah, go for it.
Well, okay, yeah. This punishment could be administered both at school and at home. Let me start at school. Whatever happened to detention, right? If a child misbehaves, rather than the teacher applying physical corporal punishment to their bodies, they could be detained. And I'm looking at the dictionary word for detention. It says, a temporary state of custody or confinement, especially of a prisoner awaiting trial or of a student being punished. Now, during that detention, either the child will get affected if they do extracurricular lessons such as your sports or playing chess or whatever, and they might regret doing the silly behavior next time because they know that they'll be affected outside of the classroom, right? And now, number 2, going to the parents or the household. That corner was talking about the belt. Okay, that's his business and all of that. But now, at school, I used to attend a school where we used to have homework books, right? You go to school, you do your homework, and then at the end of the lesson or at the end of the class, your homeroom class teacher will write down all of the activities and the homeworks that need to be done. Then the student will go back home, do the homework, and give the homework book to the parent, for the parent to sign and look over the activities and all of that. And if there's trouble written in the homework book, then the teacher will have to deal with the child. If we can't go back to doing detention and homework books and even parent-teacher meetings at least once a term, I don't think we might find any other solution, because you need to bring the teacher back to the classroom with the parents with the classroom, with the teachers and all of that. Thanks,
okay,
Ashraf.
I got that. So there you are. I wonder, do you concur with Incognito's solutions? Maybe someone's saying they're doing that anyway. I mean, why do we think that there's no detention? In fact, and it's been happening all the time. I'll tell you as a lighty, I hated detention. Yeah, it was terrible.
A lot of farmers are having to deal with, land users and landowners are having to deal with mining applications on agricultural land. And there doesn't seem to be a policy that puts agriculture first, especially if you've got productive agricultural land. And that's an issue that needs to be addressed. Thank you.
Okay, got that. Well, yeah, agriculture first in terms of our economy. Is it being put first? I don't think so. I did say the other day we need to chat about the economy, the agriculture economy.
Ashraf, this time Fontaine, democracy has cost us almost a generation. If you have not had an absolute democracy, maybe partially, where teachers will have rights to punish kids. Nowadays in high schools, like you're going on a war zone. And the second issue is there's a rumors that the police being funded by Israel and CIA to destabilize South Africa about this land, the Lesotho land claim.
That's been refuted, and that's certainly been, I've heard that, but it has been refuted. I wonder if anybody wants to add further comments on that issue, right? The issue of kids dominates.
Ashraf, the National Pulse. If we don't have a population that is paid on average a proper living wage, then parent or parents have to be constantly working, and then there's no vigilance at home, in the house, in the shack, in the hut, in the kraal, wherever children are. And with no vigilance, kids go out of control, including at school. Johnny Mahala Kabarga. It's a living wage that is the problem, Ashraf. Share that on your National Pulse.
Well, we did say the living wage is a problem, and we are sharing it because we've just shared your message. So now the country has heard you.
Good afternoon, Ashraf. I'm from Paul, early retired teacher.
Okay, sorry. In fact, we played that before. I think we're trying to delete that.
Paul.
Okay, sorry. Let's get that out of the way. We have played that one before. Remember that Paul story from Paul. Here's another one that we haven't quite touched on in the last few days.
Hello, Ashraf. It's Mariette here. I see that they have got intelligence which puts the ANC with Hamas before the 6th of October attack. And yes, they are saying that the ANC knew about the attack. And if that's true, and if it gets proven, then that actually means that we are directly also responsible for the mess that Gaza is in today, which is really scary.
I wonder which intelligence you're talking about. I saw one piece of article about it, very, very flimsy, like 2 weeks ago, and that was it. Nothing verified, nothing corroborated. I certainly saw that. That's why I'm asking.
Hello, Ashraf. It's Tamin. It's like that. You know what the minister said is profound. You know, I so wish it was said by Cyril Ramaphosa, because I have a sense that Trump will pull the handbrake after what he has heard from Mantashe. But I so wish it was said by Ramaphosa.
Okay, got that. Let's take a quick call from Solomon in Limpopo. Hi, Solomon.
Hi, Ashra. Congratulations. Your program is 95%. I'm telling you, there is no record here. It's a news.
What did you say? It's 90 what?
Much.
Sorry, I need to hear you.
95%.
Okay. All right, God. Well,
I'm
listen.
telling you, when you start, nothing record. It's a news.
Okay, well.
But let me, with due respect, I had a national spokesperson reading the Constitution about respect. I just want to point out there is sex education. I'm telling you, maybe you get some papers which they're teaching at school, at the secondary, Ashra, with due respect. I'm telling you, they are talking a path straight, and there is nothing private path to those papers. And a few people who are attending that educator talking about these issues. And I'm telling you, it's a horror. All right, let me speak another one. What about the child that's coming to school being pregnant? And some of them we are hearing releasing a child at school. Many children there. I think it's a horror, that one. The last one is this one, Ashra, which I'm begging you, to the job seekers. I'm asking you because you are doing that,
Okay, very quickly, I'm going to push you onto news. Yeah. Go for it quickly, yeah?
Yes, Minister Barbara, you should have came to our area, Louis Richard Makado, when you pass Plukwane, to approve on a new rail. And Barbara, she promised November. November never came. 25 March never came. that project, 400 people, they could get in a job. You had another program and talking about job seekers.
Okay.
I will be happy you take my number and say, hey, Minister, can you chat with this person so that
All right.
we
Okay.
can hear
Let's
about
do that.
this
Leave
project.
your number with Keys. Okay. Let's do that. Let's see if we can follow it up. Solomon, the wisdom of Solomon in Limpopo. Thank you for that. Let's get the news now. It's 5 o'clock in the hot seat. Is Greg House.
Thank you. Ashraf. Treasury withholds allocations to northwest municipalities and Russia bombs a Ukrainian prison. Good day to you. 6 northwest municipalities have had their equitable share allocations withheld by National Treasury. The affected municipalities are Swaying, Kletleng River, Naledi, Makwasi Hills, Ditsabotla and Mamusa local municipalities. They've been instructed to furnish National Treasury with proof of payment or payment arrangements with third-party service providers before their allocations can be paid. The Cooperative Governance MEC, Malepsi.
Ditsobotla has not yet received its equitable share allocation, and the municipality has, however, committed to paying the third party a tranche payment amount of 15.6 million was released on Friday. Mamusa also has committed to pay SARS an outstanding amount of 7.7 million once the equitable share is received, and the remaining balance to be settled of 2.5. The 7 million is to be paid as and when the equitable share is received.
Meanwhile, MEC Malapisi has also announced that municipalities in the province are owed more than 31 billion rand by government departments, households and businesses.
28.6 billion is household debts. Many of our people are not paying, either because of they are indigent, impoverished, or the municipality is not collecting. 2.3 billion is the money owned by government entities, and 4.2 billion is owned by the business. Municipalities own Magales Water at the tune of 2.373 billion.
The Johannesburg Mayor, Dada Morero, says the city is ready to host the upcoming G20 summit in November. The summit comes at a time where the city of Johannesburg has been battling infrastructural challenges that have had a negative impact on service delivery. The mayor says despite the challenges faced by the metro, the city's more than ready to host any top international events.
We are confident. We have already hosted almost 4 meetings. The foreign ministers was in Nazareth. There were a bit of challenges that we have corrected. There was ministers of health, Melrose. There were ministers of finance. And I think the last one was the ministers of local government who were somewhere in Sandton. So we've already hosted about 4 G20 meetings. And of course the summit is the last one, which will be hosted in November.
Police in the Northern Cape have launched a manhunt for 2 suspects who allegedly assaulted and kidnapped a 13-year-old boy. The teenager managed to escape, but the suspects were never found. Police spokesperson Timothy Sam.
A 13-year-old teenage boy was reportedly assaulted, robbed and kidnapped around Santa area in number 2 on Friday, the 11th of April 2025. The victim description of the assailants could only be depicted as per the identikit herewith. The assailants were allegedly driving in a black VW Polo. Anyone with information is asked to contact the investigating officer, Detective Constable Ntabiseng Rance, via the MySAPS app.
Police are investigating a case of murder and 3 counts of attempted murder following a shooting incident in Kales River in Cape Town. Police say they found the deceased with a gunshot wound to his stomach and he was declared dead at the scene. The suspects fled. The motive for the attack is unknown at this stage. Finally, Ukrainian officials say Russian forces have bombed a prison in the south of the country, killing at least 16 people. The BBC's Jonathan Beale has more.
Officials in Zaporizhia say Russian forces struck the frontline region with 8 glide bombs overnight. They say the strikes caused the destruction of buildings at a local prison, with dozens of casualties. It's not yet clear how many of those killed were inmates and how many were prison staff. Zaporizhia, in the southeast of Ukraine, is already partially occupied by Russian forces and is regularly targeted by Russian glide bombs, missiles and drones.
Top story: 6 northwest municipalities have had their equitable share allocations withheld by National Treasury. That's SAFM News. I'm Greg Hoos.
In sports, Kutsa claims gold at World Aquatics Championships Arena, and Osaka gets interim coach. More details at 5:30.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, the N14 westbound in Centurion has a crash reported after the R55 Pretoria West exit. The N1 southbound is queuing on the link to the N12 east at Diepkloof interchange, and Asando Road in Kempton Park is where a crash is reported at Brabazon Road. In KZN, the M7 westbound, a stationary truck before Belleville Road exit, the N3 westbound, a stationary bus before Cliffdale, and on the R102 southbound, some slow-moving traffic reported towards the M25 Commercial Highway. In Cape Town, the R300 southbound, slow-moving towards the N2 highway exit, Swartklip Road in Khayelitsha has heavy traffic reported at Govan Becky Road, and Klipfontein Road eastbound in Athlone has heavy traffic towards Jan Smuts Drive. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
Gender-based violence is destroying lives and tearing communities apart. It happens in homes, in schools, at workplaces, and too often in silence. But it doesn't have to continue. If you see it, speak out. If you are hurting, reach out. Because doing nothing is not an option. Listen to all 19 SABC radio stations from Wednesday, the 23rd of July for hard talk, discussions, advice, dramas, educational shows, and interviews around GBV with experts, survivors, lawmakers, and a whole country affected by gender-based violence. All on your favorite SABC radio station. Call 0800 428 428 to report abuse or get help. GBV, it ends with you. This message is brought to you by the SABC. The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda on SAFM. You're listening to the National Pulse, weekdays 3 to 6 p.m.
Right, we're going to get another check on the issue of education and, corporal punishment in just a moment or so. I just want to tell you as well, while we're at it, so a special constitutional court sitting will be held this Thursday, right, the 31st of July, in honour of acting Deputy Chief Justice Imbuyiseni Madlanga. It's very much in the news, as you know, as he retires now from active judicial service after 17 years on the bench. So that's significant. The other one, of course, linked to that is the other person who's serving out his own notice and getting to retirement is Feroz Kachalia, who I think would take over as the Minister of Police proper on the 1st of August, right? Okay, let's talk about further about the issues around corporal punishment. So we chatted to Elijah Matlanga earlier on. And we're going to now chat to Hendrik Makaneta pretty shortly. But there's further comments from you. Here's one.
Hi, Ashraf. Speaking to Sivisa in Kabeka. We won't be bullied. We will not be bullied. I think it's been a gospel that has no meaning, if I may put it in that way. Because the Ramza guy even also echoed the very same sentiments or shared the same sentiments of not being bullied, but he still went on to the White House and got a huge humiliation of his life. So yeah, I think they don't mean it. They're not serious.
Well, you're saying will not be bullied, right? In fact, there's been a development from Parks Tower who's also commented. I'll pick that up in a few minutes' time. Let's, however, get to the issue around corporal punishment. With me is Hendrik Makaneta, who's an education activist. Hendrik, appreciate you giving up your time here on the National Pulse.
Thank you very much, Hendrik, for having me.
Thank you. Now, we chatted to Elijah Matlanga earlier on, and he confirmed that, yes, I mean, the report done by the Department of Basic Education looked into issues, nationwide, but specifically what stands out and what is punctuated is the province of KZN. 1 in 5 of the learners in KZN are on the receiving end of corporal punishment, although in schools, that is, although corporal punishment, as we know it, was banned in 1997. What do you make of that?
Well, I think that corporal punishment, as we may all know, has been abolished. And so it is obviously unlawful for any teacher to embark upon corporal punishment of learners. Even parents at home, the Constitutional Court did make a ruling that spanking of children is outlawed as well. So it is a cause for concern that there are still people who intentionally break the law. And I think that, the law should really take its course.
But when you say
but
you say the law taking its course, right? I mean, here's the problem, and it's not linked to schooling. There are so many issues about people breaking the law and therefore are criminal, and we can't get a lid on it. I can think of 1,000 examples, and I'm talking about violent crime and other things. So when we say the law should take its course, like what law in terms of enforcement?
Well, all that would mean is that those who are tasked with the responsibility of caring for our learners, those men and women who, do what is correct, should ensure that they timelessly deal with such, unlawful conduct amongst their colleagues. It cannot be correct that, in 2025, we still talk about corporal punishment, which was abolished almost 30 years ago, in 1996.
Well, I mean, you're right about that. How much attention do we then pay in terms of why? Why would the teachers still do that when they know it was abolished in 1997? They know it's against the law now, and yet they would do so. What would provoke them to do so?
Well, from my experience in the terrain of basic education, there have been parents who collaborate, with teachers. I remember in one school where parents actually told the teachers that, look, my child, you must punish them. You must apply corporal punishment on my child. And so the reality is that even if the parent can agree, the law does not allow it. And so I know that teachers as well may argue that they've run out of options. They don't have any workable or only working methods that can really work. There are some who have been complaining about detentions to say that it doesn't really work because the teacher has to be present. But I'm saying that breaking the law is not an option.
Okay, what then is the option? So if breaking the law is not an option, you can't mete out corporal punishment, detention doesn't seem to work, some threats doesn't seem to work, reporting them to the principal maybe doesn't seem to work. What then does the teacher have at their disposal to ensure that, let's call it, law and order in the classroom is maintained?
I think that teachers need support because teachers alone will not be in discipline amongst learners. Most of the schools, especially private schools, have got proper structures such as your, school-based support teams, which include your professionals such as educational psychologists, social workers, and so on, who can also delve into the issues of mental health. Because some of these learners are unable to manage their emotions, because they are affected by a wide range of issues. So in government, it is still a problem because you find that one social worker is responsible for 5 or even 6 schools. So they spend a day in one school and the next day they're at another school. So there's that challenge. I think that government must try and beef up, these SBSTs, the school-based support teams, with a view to ensuring that teachers can focus on what they are there to do, which is to deliver the curriculum.
Mm-hmm. I mean, has there been, other countries in Africa, maybe with a similar developmental stage of where we are as a country, that has encountered similar problems, and you're aware of how they've been able to deal with it?
Well, what I know is that the issue of discipline, many countries such as the United States agree that the primary caregivers are the ones who must instill discipline. Unfortunately, teachers cannot be exempted from applying disciplinary measures simply because the parents have got a role to play. I mean, we have got a lot of children who come from child-aided families who may not really get the necessary care that other students get. But even those who, children are very different. They may get proper discipline at home, but as soon as they are out of the yard, some of them, that discipline only stays at home. So that's where the teacher needs to come in, and they too must be trained properly, to handle discipline in a much more acceptable manner, apart from applying corporal punishment.
Now, up to now, we're talking about the discipline where the learners may have done something wrong, maybe not attending class, maybe not doing their homework, something along that, maybe being rude in class and disruptive, and the teachers has responded by, meting out corporal punishment. The other one is that, and there are many examples of that, where in fact learners increasingly are violent towards the teachers and effectively are punishing the teachers, beating them up in classrooms, and we've seen that thanks to, social media posts, right? And that seems to be on the increase. How does a teacher then defend against that?
Well, unfortunately, because of the duty of care, remember that, the principle of in loco parentis dictates that in the absence of the parent, the teacher automatically becomes the parent, and therefore the teacher has got a duty to look after every child, including those unruly ones. So if a child is found beating a teacher, for example, the teacher should not be use, force or to defend themselves, or self-defense rather, in such a way that they may harm the learner. They must still remember that they are parents, and even those disruptive learners, they are parents to those learners as well, and hence the least they can do is to just report the learner to the office of the principal, and then the necessary disciplinary measures can kickstart instead of defending yourself against the child, even if they are very unruly.
Yeah. Just lastly, I'll put this to you that, in fact, is it not the case that what's playing out in schools is a reflection and a microcosm of what's playing out in society at all levels, where we find there's a high rate of crime, and people talk about delinquency and breakdowns in terms of homes and massive unemployment and disregard for the law? That means, in fact, are we not, and then inability of the police to actually stamp that out, right? They're like helpless. Are we not? Is this not a mirror of the broader South African society?
Definitely, our society, there is no doubt that there are now four main challenges: poverty, unemployment, inequality, and crime. And so this crime exists in communities, and in one way or the other, the learners come from communities. And, whenever they are exposed to gangs in communities, these learners will always find a way to bring that behavior into the schoolyard.
Okay, let's leave it at that. Lots to consider coming out of that. Hendrik Makaneta was an education activist. Listen to that podcast as well as the earlier one that we had with Elijah Matlanga, the education spokesperson for education in KwaZulu-Natal, right? There's lots to reflect on just what they said. But there's more, not so much about schooling, another sort of crisis. It's called human trafficking. We'll talk about that next.
If you think you cannot afford a lawyer, think again. Clientele Legal has made professional legal services affordable for you. Whether it's a civil, criminal, or labor-related matter, we have a nationwide panel of attorneys standing by to assist you. SMS SAFM to 32195. That's SAFM to 32195, and we'll call you back. Clientele General is a licensed non-life insurer and an authorized FSP. Standard rates and terms and conditions apply.
Mr. Govender, congrats on the retirement. You just sold your car to We Buy Cars. Tell us about it.
Yes, it just gathered dust in the garage, so I exchanged it for cold hard cash. Now my wife and I can enjoy a stress-free retirement.
Retiring the car as you retire. Nice. So why We Buy Cars?
It was so quick. They came over to our house to do the evaluation, and we sold it the same day. Tops, man.
Okay, so now you got even more time on your hands, eh?
Exactly.
We Buy Cars. Geared for your next chapter. Geared for you.
Kathy Motlatlana on SAFM.
What is it about this exposure to technology, Kaylee, that is
particularly harmful for young children?
I think the biggest thing is that is taking away a lot of the natural opportunities that children are getting to play. And this is something we're noticing a lot in the clinical and practical setting as well, and it is a growing concern. As screen time increases, physical play often decreases because they are spending their time in other ways or looking at a screen and engaging with that.
Hayley Rice is a pediatric occupational therapist.
If you're ready to talk, I'm here to listen, and nothing is off the agenda.
Ashraf Garda on SAFM.
You know that the French decided they will commit to recognizing the state of Palestine. There's also been a 2-day conference of sorts at the United Nations around that issue of Palestine and the Palestinian state. And I see South Africa's International Relations Minister, Ronald Lamola, has been addressing that sitting and talking for the recognition of the Palestinian state as well. Okay, let's put that on pause. Let's get on to another issue. Tomorrow is the World Day Against Trafficking in Persons. And the event, the theme for this year is Human Trafficking is Organized Crime and the Exploitation. You've got that? Human trafficking is organized crime and the exploitation. Let's find out what the plans are globally as well as locally around that issue with Andries Nel, who's the Deputy Minister for Justice and Constitutional Development. Deputy Minister Nel, appreciate you connecting with us on the National Pulse.
Thank you very, very much, Ashraf, and thank you so much for hosting us, and in that way also being part of the struggle against human trafficking. Indeed, tomorrow at Cape Town International Airport, myself and a number of my colleagues, my counterparts in police, in social development, in labor, and in the presidency will be joining forces together with the NPA and a number of organizations in civil society to mark the UN Day against trafficking in persons. As you say, the theme is human trafficking is organized crime in the exploitation. We've very deliberately chosen Cape Town International Airport as the site to mark that very, very important day because it symbolizes ports of entry. Ports of entry are both a risk because it is through ports of entry that people are trafficked, but at the same time, it represents an opportunity for us to tighten the screws and to make it more difficult for trafficking to take place, and also to provide a site where we can support those who are victims of human trafficking.
Mm-hmm.
Now,
just if I can pause, I mean, you're saying human trafficking is, let's pick up on that, human trafficking is organized crime. So maybe give us an example of why would that be the case? It means how organized as a crime is human trafficking?
I think the first point to make is to draw a very, very clear distinction between human trafficking, which takes many, many insidious forms, which inevitably involve exploiting people through force, through fraud, and coercion, to distinguish that from the smuggling of migrants, which is very often consensual. Means people are smuggled, they enter countries illegally. But even there is a risk that those who are smuggled with their own consent can then later, due to circumstances, end up being trafficked and exploited in that way. Why is it organized crime? Because it involves a logistic network of moving people, very often the most vulnerable, women and children, but also increasingly adults. And whilst it's very often easier to detect children, the trafficking of adults is often much more difficult to detect. Now, that trafficking then also arises because of a number of so-called push and pull factors. The push factors would be poverty, unemployment, war, instability, the pull factors would be economic, or what seems to be economic opportunity, prospect of a better life. And the traffickers very often through either force or through fraud entice people under the guise that they will be having good work opportunities, good living conditions. And then it turns out that they're exploited either in the sex industry or forced labor or children being trafficked in order to engage in forced begging. And also very concerning is that sometimes those who are trafficked end up being forced into criminality. So that is just some of the reasons why we characterize human trafficking as organized crime.
Okay, so I mean, to concur then, it also does have various forms. I mean, what can you enlighten us about the different forms of human trafficking? Because I get a sense that sometimes we don't realize it, but it's true. It all falls under that umbrella of human trafficking.
Well, as I indicated, I mean, it can take the form of trafficking, very often for sex work, very often for just out and out labor exploitation. Sometimes people are trafficked in order to do forced begging. People are press ganged into criminal activity. And just generally people find themselves in an incredibly vulnerable position because they are in those countries illegally. They're far away from home. They don't have the support networks that they would usually have. And therefore they're extremely vulnerable and in need of very specialized forms of law enforcement that are linked to support. And South Africa has a very, very advanced and tight Prevention of Combating and Trafficking in Persons Act, which was passed in 2013. Not to personalize things, but I'm very proud that I did my first stint as Deputy Minister of Justice and Constitutional Development during that period when we piloted that legislation through Parliament. And I think those who came after me really went to extra lengths to ensure that we have the necessary mechanisms, both in law enforcement, across government, between law enforcement and departments like social development, but also very importantly, partnerships with civil society organizations.
Mm-hmm. Therefore, I mean, just as we wrap up, your advice then to people listening, I mean, we pray that none of us falls prey to human trafficking, victims of human trafficking in any form. But having said that, I mean, some advice you could give to all of us to be even more vigilant around it.
Just before I do that, I just want to make the point that our legislation provides for extremely, extremely heavy penalties. And it's an indication of the seriousness with which we regard these crimes. I think many of your listeners would be familiar with the terrible Jocelyn Smith case. Yeah. In May of this year, the High Court in the Western Cape, it was Judge Nathan Erasmus, he sentenced all three accused, including Jocelyn's mother, to life imprisonment, amongst others, for human trafficking. So we've had quite a number of convictions. In fact, for the period 2024-25, it's been a total of 34 sentences of life imprisonment that have been imposed on 10 accused. So we do take it very, very seriously. But we do, as in answer to your question, we really appeal to all in our society to be very, very vigilant and to report
Well, that's where we can leave it. And I think maybe the appeal to those who commit crimes of human trafficking, and the point to them, if they're listening by chance, is like, just don't do it. Please don't do it. Andre Snell, Deputy Minister for Justice and Constitutional Development, appreciate you sharing your thoughts about human trafficking on the day before the World Human Trafficking Day. Let's get the news headlines. Here's Greg House.
Quick look at the headlines. The ACDP says it's taken note of the interim implementation of the State Capture Commission report by the President. 6 Northwest municipalities have had their equitable share allocations withheld by Treasury, and the Palestinian Prime Minister says they're ready to assume responsibility to govern Gaza. A full update at 6 o'clock.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, the N14 westbound has a crash reported after the R55 Pretoria West exit. Winnie Mandela Drive northbound in Hurlingham, slow moving towards Republic Road, and the R55 northbound in Crawthorne has a crash reported near Tamboti Road. In KZN, the M13 westbound in Hillcrest, queuing towards Everton Road. The N3 westbound has a crash reported at Hammersdale, and on the N3 southbound in Ladysmith, a truck lost its load near Bergville Interchange. In Cape Town, the N2 inbound is where a crash is reported at Mowbray Main Road. The N1 inbound also has a crash reported before Koeberg Interchange, and on Imam Haroon Turfel Road eastbound, heavy traffic reported through that Lansdowne area. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
This is SAFM Sports with Tuming Khapele.
Right to me in the pool we go.
Yeah, Peter Kutzer claimed gold in the men's 100-meter breaststroke to bag South Africa's first medal at the World Aquatics Championship Arena. Kutzer clocked 51.85 seconds, winning his first world senior title, and he also cut 0.14 seconds off his own African record of 51.99 seconds, which he had set when he won gold at the World Student Games in Germany earlier this month. Meanwhile, 19-year-old Chris Smith booked his place in the men's 100-meter breaststroke final, and he's going to return to the pool tomorrow around 3 minutes past 2 South African time for the medal contest. In football, SAFA Chief Medical Officer, Dr. Thulani Ngwenya has confirmed that the association will carry the cost of getting Gabriela Salgado back on her feet, literally following a horrific injury in the WAFCON semi-final defeat to Nigeria. Salgado stayed down on the floor in deep anguish while her teammates were inconsolable last Tuesday after a tackle from behind broke her leg in the 83rd minute. And Ngwenya says that while they will involve a club, JVW, SAFA will take the driving seat throughout the whole recovery and rehabilitation process.
SAFA will be managing and because she belongs to JVW and she'll be back in the country, we will also rope them in and will not really hand over to JVW, but we'll manage together, because in women's football we still try to cover quite significant management when it comes to players that got injured at national team duty.
Meanwhile, Cape Town City have sold utility player Procius Petrus to Sudanese champions Al Hilal on a 4-year deal. Petrus joins Al Hilal just weeks after they secured the league title in the war-torn country in a 1-month mini tournament in their return to playing in Sudan for the first time in more than 2 years. Then in rugby, Springbok Women's Centre, Kumisa Kawe says that securing a win in their final test against New Zealand will definitely boost the team's confidence as they continue their final 2025 Rugby World Cup preparations. South Africa succumbed to a 34-26 defeat. This is after a hard-fought battle against the Black Ferns at Athlone Stadium on Saturday, and Kawe says that they they will look to approach the upcoming match with intent to make sure that they level matters in the final test. Then in golf, Sports Minister Gayton McKenzie has come to the defense of the price of the tickets to the Live Golf Tournament, which will take place at Steyn City from the 20th to the 22nd of March. The tickets cost 600 Rand, and McKenzie says that the public must purchase their tickets early to avoid missing out on this historic event.
It's very affordable, and I can tell you it was a big part of our discussions with Liv, and they have truly been very accommodative for that price for South Africans. If you can compare it to other countries, and also the fact that they added the fact that children under 12 is free, so it's a family affair. As you can see here, there's families coming. So I want to say to South Africans, the tickets are on sale. We know South Africans, we always like to buy last minute. Let's not make that mistake this time. Let's go and get our tickets. It's $30 around, and it is for the whole family. And just on one point there, it is going to showcase our local artists. It's going to showcase our local dancers. Fashion is also very high here. It lives, so fashion is also part of what South Africans love. So the price for me, I can tell you, thank you, Scott, for coming down and being accommodative with the price.
In cricket, New Zealand captain Tom Latham has been ruled out of the first test against Zimbabwe starting at Queen's Sports Club tomorrow. New Zealand white ball captain Mitch Satner will lead the team in Latham's absence, and according to a statement by New Zealand Cricket, Latham injured a shoulder while fielding in a T20 match in England earlier this month and has not fully recovered. Latham will remain with the squad in the hope of being fit for the second test, which starts on the 7th of October. With that said, it is a wrap from my side. I will be back again tomorrow.
Okay, and I wonder what the big stories will be tomorrow. And I'm just guessing because things just change every minute, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely.
Pirates haven't bought a player, or have they bought?
Of course, they've bought a lot of players.
Right. I know
They've bought a lot of
Cape Town
players.
City selling a player, but fine. There's that. Let's leave it at that. We'll debate that tomorrow when it comes.
All right, then. Ke nna Tumi Kgapela, Modimo ke yo.
Economic news on SAFM. Facts and figures you can count on.
Right, let's get to the markets, of course, previewing the SAFM market update from 6 to 7 with Jimmy Moyaha. Jimmy, you want to pick up on a story about Eskom firstly?
Good afternoon, Ashraf. Good afternoon to the listeners. Yes, Eskom has approached the courts to oppose a new, or at least 5 new electricity trading licenses. Now, the idea, I suppose, behind the electricity trading licenses is that they would increase the competition that Eskom has to contend with. And we're going to chat to our energy expert, Chris Yelland, around that and try and figure out why Eskom would want to oppose these licenses being approved. Then we've also got a conversation taking a look at Kumba Iron Ore numbers. They gave us an update on their performance. We're going to take a look at that performance. We're also going to take a look at the performance of the Financial Sector Conduct Authority. The FSCA gave us an update on their enforcement actions over the last year. They issued more than 100 million rand in fines and have withdrawn more than 350 licenses from various financial institutions. So we're going to take a look at that and try and see what's been happening there. And then we've obviously got a agri feature on a Tuesday. We alternate that out with our property features. This week we're going to be taking a look at the South African Cane Growers Association. We're going to be looking at the state of South Africa's sugar industry, where we stand after some of the business rescue efforts of the likes of Tongaat Hewlett, as well as the amount of imported sugar that still exists in the market. So that's what we're going to be taking a look at on the show. Before we get to that, the market movements throughout the day have been a little surprising in some respects, but not too surprising if you're looking at some of the overall movements. Let's start with the rand. 17 rand 89 against the US dollar at the moment. At some point this was around 17 rand 93, and I was worried we were going back towards that 18 rand level. I've got Chantal Marks from FNB Wealth and Investments on markets later, so I want to get her thoughts around that. 1 euro at the moment 20 rand 65, 1 Australian dollar 11.64, 1 British pound 23 rand 88. If we look at the international markets, international indices were a bit of a mixed bag. The biggest winner, in fact, possibly the only winner in Asian markets, was the Shanghai index. The Hong Kong index was down about 0.15%. The Nikkei in Tokyo was down 0.8%. The ASX in Sydney technically was a victory. It was up 1 basis point. That's just the bare minimum to be a positive day, I suppose. The European markets were a very different story. They were all in the green. Biggest gainer there, the DAX up 1.1%. The FTSE up 0.2%, and the CAC 40 in France almost 0.9% to the green. Our own local markets had a good day. The resources up 0.6%, industrials 0.5%, financials a third, and the all share almost 0.5%, with the top 40 not too far behind, 0.46% there. The gold price at the moment, $3,324 a fine ounce. Platinum, $1,420, and palladium, $1,275. A little weaker there. We were above $1,300 an ounce there at some point. The Brent crude price a little while ago was around the $69 a barrel mark, having touched over $70 a barrel there. So we've got quite a bit to dig into from a markets perspective. Before we go, quick look at Bitcoin, $117,000 a Bitcoin, or 2.1 million rand there, 2,105,000 rand to be more specific. So still strong, still above the 2 million rand mark there. We'll look into these and other stories when we come back a little later on, but of course that's after the 6 p.m. news. For now, Ashraf, back to you.
Right, perfect. Thanks for that, Jimmy. Enjoy your show, 6 to 7. And then, as you know, sport coming up from 7 to 8 here on SAFM. But what's important is you are coming up next. I'll be talking to you.
The Morning Brief.
Do you find that there are instances where there's a disproportionate representation of Basotho nationals in and among the suspects that are involved in some of these crimes? And are you picking that up as a trend and a pattern? And how exactly are you dealing with it?
It's not only Basotho nationals that are involved in crime. We have majority also South African, but within the illegal mining space, we find a lot of Basotho nationals that are involved because during arrest, they have the highest numbers, followed by other countries like Malawi or Mozambique or Zimbabwe that are involved in those. But we also have then, you will recall, we had a tavern shooting not so long ago in Olivenhout Bosch. And what was concerning is that those that were involved and those that were shot were all illegal Basotho nationals and so on.
Brigadier Athlenda Mate, a spokesperson of the SAPS.
Tulasizwe Simelane on The Morning Brief. Ashraf Garda on SAFM.
Okay, I need to hear from you. We're going to get you. So you've got options. You can WhatsApp, text or voice note, and they are that. You can tweet us using the hashtag The National Pulse, and then tag SAFM Radio, and do tag me as well, Ashraf Garda. Or you can call in live, and that's the options. You know the numbers? I mean, if you're a first-time caller, I need to give it out to you. Otherwise, I think many people know it. They save it on their phones. To call in, 086 000 2032. WhatsApp is 0614 104 107. Right, Marshall in Cape Town. You want to talk about, I suppose, court-martial of sorts. Marshall, hi.
Hi, Ashraf.
Yeah. Good talking to you. Go for it. What's your point, Marshall?
Look, I'm looking at this corporal punishment, Yes, it was raised many years ago that, look, it's corporal punishment once you hit a child. But now we're looking at the other end of the teacher having to suffer. And I've listened earlier on to the speaker that says, listen, you must just protect yourself. So how do you protect yourself? You as a teacher. And I mean, you have very young teachers. And the teacher works on school, a grade 5 learner. You get big grade 5 learners.
Yeah.
And this grade 5 learner takes the teacher. What must the teacher do? And especially if it's a woman.
Well, I agree with you. That's why it's an issue I've raised today. Like, honestly, there's also a flip side of that. The teachers meting out punishment, but the teachers themselves being sitting ducks, really, in many instances, and we know about that too. So, Marshall, appreciate your input. Thanks for that. Let's get to Sekhukhune. We've got Hlabirwa on the line. What's your point, Hlabirwa?
Oh, thank you, Ashraf, for taking the call.
Thank you. Go for
look,
it.
man, with corporal punishment, we should understand that the way it was applied in the past, it was wrong. It was severe, and it particularly because when that time it was applied, we were in apartheid, and post to that, many of the teachers were still from what was happening. But in this essence, my take on it is that it should be brought back, but also it should be brought back reasonably so.
Okay, got that. Thank you. Yeah. All right. So you're saying, but a different type of corporate punishment. I hear that interesting one from corporal punishment, rather, Klabirwa. So interesting one. I mean, are there two types? Is there like a severe corporal punishment, or is there something that's more mellowed down, that's more acceptable? Although at this point in time, that type of physical hitting someone, no matter what the reasons are, is outlawed in schools. Here's another one. Ashraf, the issue of corporal punishment should be ventilated at the national dialogue. People should go to the national dialogue and say their say to the government by Tabang in Van der Bijl Park. Well, I think they could say that about a whole lot of things, isn't it? Including, as someone who said, the issues of, what is it called, right living, or some form of consciousness instruction in schools that is religious, that has been kept out of schools for a long, long time. And Kululeko in KZN, you're live. Go for it. What's your point?
Good afternoon, sir.
Afternoon.
Yes, just a short one. For all the things that we are complaining about, politics, everything, social issues, the EFF, Economic Freedom Fighters, is the only vehicle that will take us to our promised land. Let's all vote for EFF in 2026 and in 2029.
But what's the context of you phoning in? I mean, are you just
KZN.
calling in just to say vote for them, or is there a reason, like something
No,
sparked it up?
it's like the reason, Ashraf, I'm saying this because the EFF has all the cardinal pillars that will able to put a solution to South African problems. But people, they seem to look at the leader and say, no, I can't vote for Malema because he's this and this and this. But when you look at the principles, the EFF is the only vehicle. Is the only vehicle that can unite the South Africans.
Okay. The fact that people look at the leader and say, no. When you say all the cardinal principles, isn't that of having a leader that is acceptable to the majority of voters a key issue in being able to get into power?
Yes, Julius may not be liked by so many, but the principles of the EFF can solve this country. I know we are complaining about the ANC, but South Africa is getting younger. We are becoming youthful. Most of the people that are calling on SAFM are the old people. They will tell you about, my mother used to do this. The corporal punishment was working. No, that thing is the thing of the past. Let's talk about the future now.
Okay,
The
got
future
that.
is no corporal punishment.
Yeah.
No corporal punishment, yes.
Okay, got that. No corporal punishment. But maybe that point about the EFF is an interesting one that was just called in. It's like, okay, they got all the cardinal principles in place. Why have they not grown? Like, seriously, why have they not grown beyond where they were before? Maybe you can answer that. Right, there's more comments, including that about, let me just pick it up, sorry, I need to, okay, there's one about issue we touched on earlier. Remember the issue of don't come and bully us with Gwedi Mantashe? Well, here we are.
Good afternoon, SAFM. Ashraf, I like what Mantashe is saying. Can you please just bring him in the studio so that we can ask him some questions? Because what he's saying, it's a good thing, but last time when Mugabe said things and it all backfired, look at the situation in Zimbabwe right now, so that we can ask him, do you have plan B? Because those people are very powerful in everything, militarily, financially, they're just powerful. So can you please just bring Mr. Mantashe into the studio? Thank you.
Well, there we are. I mean, that plan B is a very important. What is your plan B, isn't it? Okay, staying with the issue of, to a degree, punishment, here's one.
Hi, Ashraf. Do me on the road. For people who says they grew up with corporal punishment and they're okay, are they really okay? And there's a thin line between corporal punishment and violence. We are a violent society, very violent society. You look how people fight each other, how people, the road rage, how people resort to fighting. I disagree with corporal punishment. They always claim they've came out fine by being beaten, but I don't think the society is fine. Do me on the road.
Okay. Well, I mean, here's a thought. And I'm not pushing for it or not, Right? I'm simply saying if one of the factors of not having corporal punishment is that it encourages using violent behavior to resolve issues in the country. Okay, that's completely understandable. Why then still, almost like 30 years since we've now abolished corporal punishment, are we still such a violent society? Just think about it. Like, why?
Hi, good afternoon, Ashraf. I think this abolishment of corporal punishment by government, that law must be repealed. It's not working for South Africa. Corporal punishment is biblical. You cannot you cannot not punish the child if she's wrong or is wrong. So we need to bring back that corporal punishment in school. It works. It worked before, and then it will continue to work. Bob, Cape Town.
Okay, Bob, corporal punishment is biblical, and I would think many religious inspired people may call in and say yeah or not.
Ashraf, good afternoon. It's Clinton here. Ashraf, there is simply no way Joburg is remotely ready for the G20 summit. Dada must be on a very dangerous cocaine, but there's no way. The only province that is ready is Western Cape, but Joburg is nowhere ready. I don't know what is the man smoking, but Joburg is nowhere ready.
Okay, we'll find out sooner rather than later, isn't it? Joburg nowhere ready. Let's get to further comments. Philip in Cape Town, you also want to talk about corporal punishment. Go for it.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much, Mr. Karza, for connecting with me.
Thank you.
I think that there's nothing wrong with corporal punishment if it's done within control. I mean, we don't want learners to be bashed by teachers. But there needs to be some form of instillment of some discipline, because the discipline that the kids don't have today, we learned it at school. We learned to make sure that homework was done, our clothing was dressed up properly. We respected teachers, we respected people in public transport. We stood for elderly people in the bus or in the taxi or in the train. These days, the kids sit there and they can use any language in front of those people, and it goes on to the house. And I think the fabric of the household, let's not talk even about schools as such, but in the homes, there needs to be an instillment of some form of discipline, chores that must be monitored and be done by the kids. And I think it starts there. And then if the kid doesn't do it, don't put them in the naughty corner. Find another way to give the kids a punishment that is constructive, just to learn a lesson from it.
All right.
I think that's what we need to do. Sir.
Philip, thank you for that. Well, I'll tell you what, there is. Right. Anybody else has a completely, unique way of addressing the issue of corporal punishment? Someone said earlier increase the detention, but I think I would take it that's already on track anyway, hasn't quite worked. If you are, I certainly want to know about it. Do we just ignore it? And is clearly the current system of deterrent is not a deterrent enough, isn't it?
Hey, good afternoon, Ashraf. I know you might be past this one about the corporal punishment, but me being a braino, I don't play with my lights. You mess up, you better stand for your thing. The belt's gonna talk. We all have different ways of disciplining, but I don't abuse my children. But they know. When they see the leather belt, they know I've messed up. This is Rafik from the Eastern Cape.
Okay, that line, me being a braino, I don't mess with my lighties. That could well be the quote of the week. Certainly got that. Right, Shatta in Cape Town, you live. Go for it. What's your point?
Ashraf, how are you?
Yeah, good indeed. Go ahead.
I'm good, thank you. Before I make my point, Ashraf, I just want to comment to one of the previous callers who referred to the Bible.
Yeah.
In regards to the corporal punishment. South Africa is not a Christian state. South Africa is a multi-religious state. So we cannot always refer to the Bible when we want to make points or the Constitution, or when we.
No, but he can refer to the Bible. He may not be right in its implementation. There's nothing stopping him referring to the Bible because that's what inspires him.
Correct, but what I'm saying is we've got Muslims, we've got a whole lot of religions in South Africa, so we cannot base our constitution based on one religion.
Okay, point taken. Right. Okay. Right, what else?
Sorry, yes. Ashraf, look, I will consider myself as one of the lucky people who actually lived under the system of corporal punishment and, the system where corporal punishment was no longer allowed. I think abolishment of corporal punishment has created a much better society in terms of reasoning. Even disciplining kids in school, even at homes, one ought to look into yourself and look for the reasons on how I'm going to reason with this child, with whatever he or he might have done. Whereas in the past, a child will just get hidings without reasoning, without even understanding what exactly did I do wrong here. In the past, Ashraf, with this corporal punishment, it was not only corporal punishment, the human rights on its own. It was a norm from the community that is coming from that a man can just hit a woman, and it can be a joke. People could laugh about it. But we're coming now into a society whereby if that happens, it's a calamity.
But it's still happening. You see, that's the point. If it happens, it's a calamity. Yet our issues of violent crime on the rise, gender-based violence on the rise, it hasn't stopped at all. Shanta, I'm going to move on. I think you've made your point. You've articulated it well enough. Here's a couple more comments. People saying Joburg is nowhere ready for the G20. Only think of Joburg as the CBD. Midrand, Sandton, Rosebank are also Joburg for Mtunze. Well, I think you're right there. The reality is it's never going to be held in the city of Joburg, like downtown, as you would call it, or town, right? It's not going to happen, right? Maybe they're going to spruce it up a little bit. Depends where they're going to be used, like, try and fix up, as has happened before, the areas around FNB Stadium or Soccer City, that sort of thing. But yes, events, Convention Centre, Gallagher, that's where it'll be. Let me respond to the EFF supporter. As long as the EFF defending undocumented immigrants in South Africa, I would never vote for them. And there's more from Ompela's father. That's what he says. The issue of unruly behavior at schools, Ashraf, is a reflection of our society. For example, look at broken families due to alcohol abuse, gender-based violence, road rage. These kids simply take after their parents. Well, if they simply take after their parents, it's simply not too simple, isn't it? It's a huge issue that they would do that. Ashraf, if a teacher finished his or her degree at 23 years of age, then goes and teach at a secondary school, is that teacher a parent to a 16 or 18-year-old learner from Pule in Orange Farm? Now the whole country is doing their maths, Pule. With the workload on public school teaching, how much time does she have to teach and then get to report unruly behavior to school principals? Then she must make provision for the unruly learners so that he or she doesn't miss the lesson he or she try to disrupt. Does he and she get overtime remuneration? Well, yeah, you've come to the nub of the story, isn't it? Yeah, and it's an issue. Right, let's pick out a couple more voice notes as we wrap up the show. Really interesting talking to you. Here's one that we haven't spoken about this name for a few days.
Ashraf, afternoon. My pulse on the issue of Mkhwanazi. I doubt, man. I'm on his side, but I doubt whether if he will win at the end of the day. Because even Jesus Christ, man, he didn't win in the Bible, man. I doubt, because those police officers, the comrades, the politicians are benefiting from this system of corruption. How many drug dealers are around the sunny side today in Pretoria? How many are they? I don't see Mkhwanazi winning this case, man. Thank you.
Okay, you don't see him winning. I wonder whether others feel that it will. Why don't you see him winning?
Ill discipline at schools leads to a nation of total lawlessness, criminality, rape, plunder and murder. This country, South Africa, is a classical example of ill discipline.
Sure, and you sound like a headmaster. I'm just saying, it gets the message across. I hear you.
Hi, Ashraf. To me on the road. For people who says they grew up with corporal punishment and they're okay, are they really okay? And there's a thin line between corporal punishment and violence. We are a violent society, very violent society. You look how people fight each other, how people, the road rage, how people resort to fighting. I disagree with corporal punishment. They always claim they've came out fine by being beaten, but I don't think the society is fine. Do me on the road.
Okay, Chumi, thank you for that. Let's wrap up the show just with a reminder in terms of where we are, right? This message is brought to you by Ituba. So get ready, Mzansi. The Powerball is rolled over to a massive 100 million rand guaranteed jackpot this Tuesday. You heard right, play Powerball for the guaranteed 100 million rand jackpot today, and you could hit it lucky. Buy your tickets now in-store on the nationallottery.coza, the mobile app, cell phone banking, or simply dial *120 *7529# for USSD Panda Push-Up Play. Players must be 18 years or older. Play responsibly. Ichuba is the proud operator of the National Lottery. Right, that's the show. We'll do it again tomorrow. As always, it is the National Pulse, and you, by the way, you help us move it. Let's get the news now. Here's Greg Hose.
ACDP speaks on implementation of state capture report and Treasury withholds allocations to Northwest municipalities. Good evening. The ACDP says it's taken note of the interim implementation